Chapter 76. Snape's House. After learning the theory, Harry started to practice. He stood in front of the cauldron, concentrating on watching the color of the potion change, while Snape stood by, coldly observing his every move. Honestly, Harry was shaking a little just standing next to Snape. This is totally different from studying with Sebastian. Professor Snape's face was very cold. Are your operating steps correct? We dare not say anything, we dare not ask anything. Neither of them said a word, and a suffocating silence filled the air. Nearing noon, Snape turned and left the room. Watching Snape's leaving back, Harry's heart sank suddenly, and he recalled every step like a movie in his mind. Is it that the order in which the materials are added is wrong? Or is the weighing inaccurate? He recalled every detail carefully, and his hands began to tremble slightly unconsciously. Could it be that his actions were full of flaws and Professor Snape just couldn't stand it anymore? Don't go, Professor. I think my potion can still be salvaged. Just when Harry was feeling uneasy, Snape came back with a plate in his hand. There were a few sandwiches on the plate, simple to the point of being crude. Snape said coldly as he placed the plate in front of Harry. You brewed a good potion. If this were at school, I would definitely give you 10 points. Eat, you need to replenish your energy. After eating, we will continue studying. If Harry was very nervous when he first faced Snape alone, then after spending half a day together, he found that Professor Snape was actually a person who was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. He was so happy that after he relaxed, he realized that he was really hungry. Thank you, Professor. Harry picked up the sandwich and took a big bite, his face quickly turning purple. Choking. Why do you do that? Professor Snape eats this every day. No wonder I don't like to laugh. Who can laugh after eating these things every day? Harry turned around silently and swallowed the sandwich in his mouth with difficulty. At this moment, out of Harry's sight, Snape's expression was as stern as ever, but there seemed to be a hint of imperceptible warmth in that sternness. Before I knew it, it was already evening. Harry stood in front of the workbench, looking at the potion he had brewed today, feeling a sense of accomplishment. He really wanted to praise Professor Snape, but after hesitating for a long time, he couldn't open his mouth and could only praise him silently in his heart. This is the potion's master. This is Professor Snape's level. Just by slightly changing the steps in the book, the complicated brewing process becomes much simpler. But, studying really takes a lot of energy. Harry rubbed his hungry stomach again, and a hint of anticipation rose in his heart. When will Sebastian come to pick me up? I really don't want to have dinner at Professor Snape's house. After all, his bread is too dry and hard. In the following days, Harry no longer asked Sebastian to pick him up, because Snape connected the fireplace in his house to the flow network. In this way, Harry went to Snape to learn potions during the day, and when he came back at night, he went to the duel field with Sebastian to practice spells until they were exhausted. His potions level was rising steadily, and his spells level was increasing rapidly. The days passed one by one, and in the blink of an eye it was July 31st. Harry, get up, wash up quickly and have breakfast, we are going to the amusement park today. Today is Harry's birthday, and Mia took a day off early for this day. Ever since Mia heard Harry say that he had never been to an amusement park, she vowed to take Harry to the amusement park for a good time. After breakfast, Mia and Sebastian took Harry to the amusement park in London as a muggle. This was Harry's first time in a place like this, and everything in front of him was overwhelming. The huge Ferris wheel rotates slowly, the carousel goes up and down with the music, the roller coaster flies through the air, and the children's laughter and screams come one after another. It turns out that this is where Dudley comes to play every year on his birthday. Harry was so excited that he held Mia's hand and walked to the line for the roller coaster. He's been wanting to play this for a long time. Every year after Dudley came back from the amusement park, he would show off his bravery to himself, saying that he could even ride a roller coaster without batting an eyelid. Harry wanted to prove today that he was braver than Dudley. After the seat belts were fastened, the roller coaster moved forward slowly, gradually rising with the sound of mechanical clicks. Harry's eyes widened, his hands gripping the armrests tightly, feeling every gear turning. Finally, the carriage reached the highest point, and the front suddenly opened up, with the entire amusement park in sight. Are you ready, Harry? Sebastian asked, smiling. Harry was about to reply when the roller coaster suddenly rushed downwards. His heart suddenly rose to his throat, and his body seemed to be thrown into the air. The pull of gravity made him feel an unprecedented stimulation. He couldn't help but scream. The wind was whistling, and his ears were filled with screams and cheers. He felt so refreshed and free. Before nightfall, Sebastian and his party returned to Swan Manor. Jeff had already set up the party, with colorful balloons hanging from the ceiling and a long dining table filled with delicious food. In the center of the table was a huge birthday cake, decorated with brightly colored candies and sparkling candles. Just as Harry was immersed in this beautiful arrangement, the door was pushed open again. The first person to come in was a gentle middle-aged man with a smile on his face and a kind look. Although he was dressed elegantly, the traces of time could be seen between his brows. Following closely behind was a tall and burly giant, whose figure almost took up the entire space of the door frame. He had a thick beard and he shouted at Harry as soon as he walked in. "Harry, long time no see. The last time I saw you, you were still a little furball, not much bigger than a kitten." Harry looked at the cake in front of him that was carefully prepared for him. The burning candles on it reflected the smiling faces of the people around him, and his heart was filled with emotion. Sebastian and Mia's careful arrangements and the arrival of Lupin and Hagrid made him feel cared for and loved. The loneliness and solitude that I once felt seemed to be dispelled without a trace at this moment. He picked up a piece of cake and took a light bite. The sweet taste melted in his mouth, as if all the bitterness before was diluted at this moment. So sweet. It's sweeter than any birthday cake I've ever eaten. Harry knew that he finally had a real home. This birthday was not only his 11th birthday, but also a brand new beginning in his life. Everyone made a lot of noise for a long time and didn't stop until late at night. Harry sat on the bed, looking out the window at the night sky, his mind full of thoughts. He pulled out a framed photo, a gift from Mia. Harry looked at the smiling Mia in the photo and said softly, "Aunt Mia, you said you were sorry that you didn't become my godmother. But in my heart, you have already been my godmother." Then his eyes moved to the figure next to Mia, that was his mother. He stared at the photo for a long time, until he got tired, then he held the photo in his arms and lay down on the bed. He said happily before closing his eyes, "Love you, Mom. I am really happy now." Chapter 77. Since everyone had been having a blast late last night, Sebastian simply invited everyone to stay at Swan Manor. Early the next morning, Lupin had already left quietly. Sebastian, Harry, and Hagrid stood in front of the gate of Swan Manor. Facing the empty street, he stretched out his right hand and raised his wand, as if making a gesture to stop a car. Before Harry could figure out what this action meant, he saw a dark shadow rushing from a distance, whooshing and stopping steadily in front of the three people. The door opened and a conductor came out. "Welcome aboard the night bus. The night bus will take you anywhere you want to go, and I'm the conductor, Stanthorn Park." "Bus?" Harry rubbed his eyes hard, he couldn't believe what he saw. "Didn't we say we were going to Diagon Alley today? Why not use a fireplace? Taking the bus? This is so unmagical." Harry followed Sebastian onto the bus in a daze, and found a seat by the window and sat down. As soon as he fastened his seat belt, he heard Hagrid speaking to the conductor in his unique loud voice. "3 men, the Leaky Cauldron. Oh, that's very close. We'll be there soon. 5 silver sickles per person." As soon as he finished speaking, the car started and the night bus moved forward at a high speed. There was no bump or shake in the car, but the scenery outside the window that was rapidly receding still made Harry feel a little uneasy. "Harry," the attentive Sebastian noticed Harry's expression and smiled gently, "the night bus is driving very steadily, don't be nervous. We're taking the night bus to Diagon Alley today. It's a very convenient way to travel. Not every wizard can learn the magic of apparition. Some wizards also don't like the squeezing feeling during apparition. The night bus is designed for wizards like this. When you want to take one in the future, just hold out your wand and make a gesture to stop the bus, just like I did." At this moment, Harry saw the driver rushing on the road, and all the obstacles in front of the vehicle jumped to the side. His mouth dropped open in shock. He wanted to apologize for what he had just thought. This is simply magical. But can't the muggles on the street see it? Before he could ask the question in his mind, the night bus stopped. "Let's go," Sebastian patted Harry's shoulder, "we've arrived at the Leaky Cauldron on Charing Cross Road." Harry got out of the car and found an unusually small bar nestled between a bookstore and a record store. A rickety sign hung on the shabby wooden door, with the words "The Leaky Cauldron" engraved in large letters. There were very few pedestrians on the street, and those who occasionally passed by were all in a hurry, as if this bar did not exist at all in their eyes. Harry followed Sebastian and Hagrid into the bar, and as the door opened, a mixture of the smell of beer, tobacco, and damp wood hit him in the face. The light inside the bar was dim, with a few old oil lamps emitting a faint yellow light. The wooden floor creaked when you walked on it, the walls were covered with thick dust, and there were some unknown stains in the corners. It looked like it had not been cleaned for a long time. Harry couldn't help but frown, his heart full of doubts. This was completely different from the bright and bustling bar he had imagined. So dark and dirty. This was Harry's first impression of the leaky cauldron. He followed Hagrid closely and found that Hagrid felt like he was back home here. Everyone here knew him and everyone greeted him. Harry's eyes were wide open, his gaze darting around the bar. He had never imagined that there was such a bar in London that was specifically for wizards. Some customers were talking in low voices, some were drinking steaming exotic drinks, and others were staring at some strange magical objects in a trance. Suddenly, Harry heard Hagrid tell the bar owner his name, and then he saw the bar owner running out from behind the bar with an excited look on his face and holding his hand. "Mr. Potter, welcome to the Leaky Cauldron." Harry felt very uncomfortable. After his last visit to Diagon Alley, he had a certain understanding of his reputation in the wizarding world. However, after learning the truth from Sebastian, he felt in his heart that the credit for defeating Voldemort lay entirely with his mother, and that he himself was totally unworthy of the title of savior. Therefore, for today's trip to Diagon Alley, he wore a hat to hide the scar on his forehead. Unexpectedly, as soon as I entered the Leaky Cauldron, Hagrid revealed my identity. To be honest, he felt that Hagrid had tried his best to lower his voice, but his voice was too loud, and even if he lowered his voice, everyone in the bar could still hear it clearly. "Mr. Potter, it's an honor to meet you." In the blink of an eye, a long line formed in front of Harry, and everyone wanted to shake hands with the legendary savior. Harry looked at Sebastian for help, only to find that he was just sitting on a chair at the door, looking at him with a smile on his face, as if expecting something. "PPPT, sir. Nice to meet you." Harry turned his head quickly and found a pale young man standing in front of him. His voice was a little stuttering, perhaps because of nervousness. "Professor Quirrell," Hagrid came up and greeted him quickly. "Harry, this is the professor from Hogwarts." "Professor at Hogwarts? Which course do you teach?" Harry felt very strange. Can a stutterer become a professor? Did he have some special talent, like Professor Snape was a potions master? However, how can I teach students when I stutter like this? Harry suppressed his doubts and shook hands with Quirrell politely. "Hello, Professor Quirrell, nice to meet you." Just as Harry was about to ask something, Sebastian came up and gently pushed Harry in the direction of Hagrid. "Harry, you still have a lot of things to do, just follow Hagrid first. Hagrid is here on behalf of Hogwarts, don't delay his work. By the way, you have missed 2 potions classes. Remember to go to the potions material shop later to pick up some potion materials." Sebastian blinked his right eye at Harry. "Just bring the gifts over tomorrow and your potions teacher won't make things difficult for you. Remember, the rarer the better. If you don't have enough money, just order it first and I'll pay for you later." Having said that, Sebastian turned around, grabbed Quirrell who was about to leave, and greeted him warmly. "Professor Quirrell, long time no see. I heard that you have been traveling in the Muggle world for the past year. Come on, today's my treat. As future colleagues, we need to keep in touch with each other." Watching the 2 professors leave, Harry smiled at Hagrid, then followed Hagrid to the back of the bar. Chapter 78. Harry followed Hagrid across the bar and into a small, walled patio. He looked around and found nothing here except a trash can. At this time, Hagrid took out a small red umbrella and counted the bricks on the wall. "Harry, Sebastian told me that you've been to Diagon Alley. But this is your first time visiting the Leaky Cauldron, right? Generally speaking, young wizards living in the Muggle world take this route when they go to Diagon Alley for the first time. Next, don't blink." Hagrid held the little red umbrella and tapped lightly on a brick 3 times. Harry quickly held his breath and stared at the seemingly ordinary wall. As Harry stared in surprise, the wall began to tremble, and the bricks seemed to be pushed by an invisible force, slowly sliding to the sides. Each brick seemed to have life, moving in an orderly manner and making a low friction sound. As the last few bricks were adjusted into place, an archway large enough for Hagrid to pass through appeared in front of him, and outside the door was the familiar Diagon Alley. "Welcome to Diagon Alley, Harry," Hagrid patted his head. "Oh, I almost forgot, this is for you." Hagrid rummaged around in his pocket, pulled out a letter and handed it to Harry. The admission letter from Hogwarts should have been delivered by Owl. "Open it and take a look." Harry quickly opened the letter and read it carefully. School uniforms, textbook, crucible. He read the notice over and over again, then looked up at Hagrid. "Hagrid, do you have any suggestions for pets?" "I have everything else ready." "Pet?" Hagrid laughed. "You've asked the right person. First, take toads off the list. They fell out of fashion a long time ago. As for cats and owls, my suggestion is to buy an owl. It can help you deliver letters, and many wizards choose owls as pets." "Send a letter." Harry was a little confused. "Aunt Mia gave me a two-way mirror before. She said I could contact her through it." "A two-sided mirror? That's a very advanced alchemical item," Hagrid muttered in surprise. "However, a two-sided mirror only supports communication between two people. You will have many friends in the future, so an owl is necessary." As they were talking, the two walked to a strange building. Hagrid lowered his head and spoke to Harry. "Before we go buy a pet, we need to go to Gringotts first." He patted his chest and said, "My job today is to come here to pick something up." After saying that, he stepped forward and led Harry towards the door of Gringotts. As they passed the gate, Hagrid pointed at the words on the gate and said to Harry, "Gringotts is run by goblins. They always think that everyone is eyeing their wealth. So, they carved the warning on the gate." He curled his lips. "Only a madman would think of robbing Gringotts." "Why, Hagrid? Why?" "Because Gringotts vaults are all deep underground, and important places are guarded by dragons." When mentioning dragons, Hagrid's eyes sparkled. "That's a fire dragon, the cutest, most beautiful, and most powerful creature in the world. I really want to raise one myself." A question mark appeared in Harry's head. Fire dragon? Cute? Beautiful? How do these three words connect together? Harry looked up at Hagrid's majestic figure and couldn't help but conjure up a picture in his mind. The tall Hagrid held the ferocious dragon in his arms, laughing and praising it. "My little Mau Mau, you are so cute." Thinking of this, Harry inexplicably felt that there was nothing wrong with the scene in his mind. He shuddered suddenly. He felt that Hagrid's thinking was different from that of ordinary people. After all, who would call a dragon a cute animal? Harry shook his head, driving these messy thoughts out of his mind, and then followed Hagrid into the hall of Gringotts. As he entered the hall, Harry felt blinded by the light. Before coming, he thought Swan Manor was luxurious enough. "I didn't expect that there would be a building more magnificent than this one." The lobby in front of me was spacious and bright, with a smooth marble floor, towering columns around it, and a dome on top inlaid with sparkling gems. The light shines through the stained glass windows, making the entire space sparkle with gold. "What a rich guy!" Harry couldn't help but complain in his mind, then looked at the goblins in the hall. "Are these little things goblins? It looks like it's not as tall as me." Harry looked at the goblin carefully and saw that he was short, with pale skin and a sharp face. Each goblin was wearing an exquisite uniform and holding a quill in his hand, quickly writing something on parchment. After Hagrid negotiated with a goblin, they were led by a goblin and got on a cart and sped down the railroad tracks. When the cart stopped in front of a vault door, Harry felt a little unsatisfied. This feeling. It's like a roller coaster. It can even be said that it is more exciting than a roller coaster. "Your keys." Hearing this, Harry hurried forward and placed the key that Hagrid had given him into the goblin's hand. After a series of clicking sounds, the goblin opened the door of the vault, revealing the scene inside. Looking at the piles of gold galleons inside, Harry took a deep breath. He had never imagined that he would be so rich. He grinned, took out the wallet Mia had given him, and began stuffing handfuls of gold galleons into it, counting in his mind as he took out the coins. "Use this money to buy Aunt Mia a bag. Use this money to buy a watch for Sebastian. That's right. And Professor Snape." He gave himself a bottle of magic potion before his birthday. It was golden and very beautiful. According to Aunt Mia, that bottle of potion is extremely precious and can bring good luck to people. In this case, I have to express my opinion no matter what. When Sebastian picked up Harry, he was holding a birdcage with a pure white snowy owl in it. "Is this a gift from Hagrid?" "Well, I named it Hedwig. It's very beautiful. You must take good care of it." "Where's the gift for Professor Snape?" Gillwheat is a very valuable potion ingredient. Professor Snape will surely smile with joy. Seeing Harry handing the potion ingredients to him like he was presenting a treasure, Sebastian's grin grew wider and wider. Interesting. This was bought with Potter's money. I wonder what Severus' expression was when he found out about this? Joy? Disgust? Hehe, no matter what expression it is, it must be very interesting. I really want to capture it with my magic camera. Sebastian patted Harry's shoulder and led him towards the fireplace in Diagon Alley. By the way, Quirrell will go to Gringotts today. It looked like this unfortunate fellow was about to be possessed by Voldemort. Epsilon equals Omicron asterisk, alas, Hogwarts is about to get lively. In that case, let's go to Hogwarts tomorrow. He. Sorcerer's Stone, here I come. Chapter 79. After breakfast, Sebastian arrived at Hogwarts through the fireplace. The atmosphere in the office seemed a bit stuffy because no one had taken care of it for a long time. The whirlwind swept away. The office window opened, and the dirty air and the dust in the room all flew out of the window under Sebastian's control. Standing in front of the window and taking a breath of fresh air, Sebastian was surprised to find that Hogwarts had undergone some changes. A row of greenhouses had been newly built on the edge of the Forbidden Forest in the distance, and the glass walls sparkled in the Sunday good. It seems that after receiving the money, Lao Deng has already arranged the work-study program. Professor Pomona is very efficient and the greenhouse is already ready. Now everything is ready. Once the little wizards are in place, we can start working. Checking his magic watch, Sebastian found that it was almost time for his appointment with Dumbledore, so he walked briskly towards the headmaster's office. After entering, Sebastian was surprised to find that there was no one in the principal's office. Old Deng actually broke his promise? This is the first time I've seen this. Just as Sebastian was wondering, the portrait of the headmaster on the wall moved. A wizard with a goatee yelled at Sebastian, "Sebastian, Dumbledore told me to tell you something. He received a request for help from Minister of Magic Fudge this morning, so he went to the Ministry of Magic. However, he will be back soon, so please wait here first." Not here? That's boring. Sebastian sat down reluctantly, and then started chatting with the portrait of Phineas. Just when Sebastian was bored to death, the sorting hat on the shelf spoke. "Slytherin boy, why do you smell like a Gryffindor?" Sebastian's eyes lit up when he heard the sorting hat's question. Yes. It's a Gryffindor hat. And he himself obtained the Gryffindor heritage. In this case, will the sorting hat listen to me? In the previous life, in the discussions among stupid netizens, whether the sorting hat has any shady dealings has always been an unresolved question. Now that I have this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, I must give it a try. He spoke immediately, his voice full of anticipation. I have been recognized by Gryffindor and have obtained the inheritance he left behind. For Gryffindor's sake, can you do me a small favor? After saying that, Sebastian thought about it and layers of armor spells flashed in front of him. Well, no wonder. Seeing the long-lost shield charm, the sorting hat suddenly realized, you have been recognized by Gryffindor, so we are family. What do you want? Tell me. Can you arrange a few students? Sebastian asked seriously, holding the sorting hat in his hand. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Before Sebastian could finish his words, the sorting hat righteously rejected his request. I am a fair and just hat, and I sort students into houses based on their qualities. There is absolutely no such thing as a shady operation. Just give up on this idea. Oh. What a fair and just thing. If Sebastian was born and raised in the magical world, he would definitely be superstitious about authority. Believe in this alchemical object that was created by the thoughts of the four founders. However, Sebastian's soul comes from the Muggle world where information is exploding. His knowledge is no longer limited by the small magical world. Sebastian firmly believes that no decision made by any thinking creature in this world can be completely fair and just. At best, it is just relatively fair. If the sorting hat is just an ordinary alchemical item, it is a program, and all the decisions it makes are based on the conditions input in advance. So it is somewhat credible to say that it is fair and just. Too bad the sorting hat has a mind of its own. It can think, communicate with people, and come up with a house song every year. In this case, the fairness and justice it can achieve is questionable. After all, the sorting hat is just an alchemical item belonging to Hogwarts, and in Hogwarts, the headmaster is the person with the most authority. Sebastian had the right to doubt that when a wizard became headmaster of Hogwarts, he had the right to give the Sorting Hat some orders. Perhaps, only by becoming a principal can one know this secret. When the little wizards have distinct personalities, I trust you to be fair and just. But in this world, there are always many special situations. Let me ask you. Sebastian sneered and asked a soul-searching question to the Sorting Hat. He is a little wizard who is diligent, studious, and extremely intelligent, but also ambitious and only believes in bloodline. How do you tell the difference? A little witch who is both brave and courageous, as well as friendly, loyal, and upright. How do you tell the difference? In the history of the sorting, there have often been young wizards who are suitable for multiple houses. Every time this happens, you have to spend a long time making a judgment. People always say that the achievements of those little wizards later on are enough to prove the accuracy of your sorting. Then who can prove that those little wizards can't achieve amazing success if they go to other academies? After saying what was in his heart in one breath, Sebastian felt much better. Mock-up. This theory was well received by many professors at last year's opening banquet. I don't believe that after such a series of punches, your tattered hat can still tell the directions. Just as Sebastian expected, a series of questions came one after another, leaving the Sorting Hat speechless. It is indeed impossible to prove whether those young wizards with multiple characteristics will become just like everyone else if they go to other colleges. It has been created for 1,000 years. After such a long time, his wisdom has long figured out one thing. That is, if a person possesses many good qualities, then no matter what he does, he will be more likely to succeed than ordinary people. He opened his mouth and after a long while managed to utter a word. Don't be so loud. It's so early in the morning. Maybe some people are still sleeping in. For Gryffindor's sake, please tell me who you want to arrange for me. I'd like to state in advance that I will only consider the arrangement you mentioned if the conditions are similar. You have to remember that I am still the fair and just Sorting Hat. Is that it? Sebastian was a little surprised. He thought it would take some time. However, he only needed a few words to convince the Sorting Hat. What about the headmaster of Hogwarts? For the Sorting Hat, do the headmaster's words carry more weight? At this point, Sebastian had no time to think about anything else. He just thought for a moment and said a few names. Vincent Crabbe, Gregory Goyle, put them both in Hufflepuff if you can. Are you sure? The Sorting Hat sounded doubtful. These two names sound like they belong to pure-blood families. Will they be suitable for Hufflepuff? I'm sure, Sebastian said with some emotion, I've observed them, and they're a good match for Hufflepuff. They are extremely simple-minded now, and all they think about all day is eating. The idea of going to Slytherin was instilled in them by their parents. They don't have any opinions of their own. Hufflepuff is the best choice for them. Honestly, Sebastian was overwhelmed just thinking about the problem children that would be joining Slytherin this year. If there was no interference, the two fat kids would definitely enter Slytherin as in the original book and become the lackeys of the mischievous Malfoy. Sebastian had observed during the summer vacation that compared to other problem children, these two fat kids had very few thoughts. In this case, letting these two little fat kids enter Slytherin would completely ruin them. It would be better to let them go to a friendly environment when their minds are still relatively innocent. At the very least, they can meet a group of like-minded dining friends at Hufflepuff. Of course, there is another benefit to doing this, which is to split up Malfoy's small group in advance. Sebastian also wanted to see if Malfoy would still be so arrogant without the two little bodyguards. Well, if the situation is really as you said, I will consider it. The Sorting Hat only considered it for a moment before agreeing to Sebastian's proposal. Just the two of them, right? Sebastian hesitated for a long time and sighed softly. Just the two of them. Chapter 80. Sebastian actually wanted Harry to come to Slytherin. But he knew clearly that this was simply impossible. Since he could convince the Sorting Hat, Dumbledore would be no problem at all. Besides, Dumbledore has always had a prejudice against Slytherin. He loved Harry so much, how could he allow Harry to go to Slytherin? Back then, in order to ensure that Harry's peaceful life would not be disturbed, Dumbledore made many people promise not to disturb him before he was 11 years old. However, Sebastian also figured it out. He felt that Harry's stubborn personality was actually more suitable for Gryffindor, and he was very incompatible with the atmosphere of Slytherin. Most importantly, Harry also needs the sincere companionship of friends of his own age as he grows up. In the Slytherin environment, it was hard to find a good friend who would go through thick and thin with Harry on impulse. Especially among the little ones who will enter Slytherin this year, many of them come from Death Eater families. Harry would definitely be uncomfortable in this atmosphere. Harry being uncomfortable equals Mia being unhappy. If Mia is unhappy, it means she will have a hard time. Therefore, regarding the matter of sorting, Sebastian was still happy to see Harry go to Gryffindor. After figuring this out, Sebastian relaxed completely. He looked at the sorting hat in his hand and decided to verify another guess of his. Sebastian stood up straight, closed his eyes and took a deep breath. In just a moment, his aura changed. He slowly put his right hand into the sorting hat and then clenched his palm slightly. Suddenly, an irrepressible smile appeared on his face, and he felt a cold metallic touch in his hand. It was the hilt of a sword. Sebastian gripped the hilt of the sword and pulled hard. Clang! A crisp metallic sound echoed in the principal's office. In an instant, a jeweled sword was drawn out, the blade emitting a cold light that illuminated the entire room. Hey? Why is there the sound of a sword being unsheathed? Didn't it come out of the hat? Sebastian turned the sorting hat over and studied it for a long time, but couldn't figure out what was going on. With the sound of the sword, the entire principal's office became lively. This is impossible, Phineas in the portrait was the first to shout, "You are a Slytherin, how can you pull out this sword?" After Phineas, other headmaster portraits also spoke up to discuss this strange phenomenon. The argument became more and more intense, and in the end, the portrait of Principal Dellis ran directly into Phineas's frame and chased him and started hitting him. Sebastian looked at the Gryffindor sword in his hand happily and danced with it handsomely. Then he thrust his sword forward and smiled at the portraits of the headmasters. Haha, from today on, I am the Gryffindor sword master from Slytherin. Before he finished speaking, Dumbledore appeared in the headmaster's office, accompanied by the clear cry of Fawkes. He looked at Sebastian who was pointing the sword at him, and a flash of surprise flashed across his eyes. Sebastian, tell me what you need. I think I'd be easy to talk to even if you didn't point a sword at me. Dumbledore joked playfully, then returned to his seat and looked at Sebastian with a smile on his face. Even though Sebastian was very thick-skinned, his face still turned red after being caught by Dumbledore showing off. Hey, Principal, you're back so early. Sebastian smiled awkwardly, put the Gryffindor sword and the sorting hat on the shelf, then sat down opposite Dumbledore and forced a change of subject. Principal, I heard that you have Nicholas Flamel's Philosopher's Stone. Can I use it? Dumbledore looked a little surprised. He didn't expect that Sebastian would come to him today just after he got the Philosopher's Stone in his hand yesterday. Oh, if you're interested in the Philosopher's Stone, why don't you try making one yourself? Dumbledore did not directly answer Sebastian's request, but instead threw a question at him. Hearing this, Sebastian smiled slightly. Didn't you say you're easy to talk to? I knew it wasn't that simple. Headmaster, although Nicholas Flamel has published all the steps to the Philosopher's Stone, no one has succeeded so far. We in the Swan family have also studied it, but we haven't found the problem yet. Only Nicholas Flamel himself knows when the Philosopher's Stone was created, but it was not until after the Black Death in Europe that it was finally revealed to the world. I have a guess here, that is, the refining of the Philosopher's Stone requires an extremely huge amount of vitality. That also explains why Nicholas Flamel said that he also refined the Philosopher's Stone by chance. Even if he was given another chance, he wouldn't be able to do it. Of course, Sebastian said, changing the subject and looking at Dumbledore with burning eyes, I have no intention of verifying whether this idea is correct. I just want to borrow the Philosopher's Stone. Dumbledore's expression was expressionless, so Sebastian couldn't tell what he was thinking. What are you going to do after you get the Philosopher's Stone? Refine endless gold. Without waiting for Sebastian to reply, Dumbledore continued speaking sincerely. There is a saying among Muggles that human desires are like Pandora's box. Once it is fully opened, it can never be closed again. Sebastian, you already have enough money, so don't let the Philosopher's Stone corrupt your will. No, you misunderstood me again. I just want to use the Philosopher's Stone to make some water to drink. Sebastian took out a special cup and placed it on Dumbledore's desk. Dumbledore was speechless. Doesn't this guy think he is a fool? Although the water soaked in the magic stone is indeed one of the raw materials for refining the immortality potion, it is too unrefined to drink it directly. Even if you say you use it to water the flowers, it would be more reliable than this. Sebastian was a little helpless. He actually just wanted some water soaked in the magic stone to water the herbs and do some more things. For example, doing some potion experiments. For example, save Quirrell. Thinking about what happened to Quirrell, Sebastian was still puzzled. When I first came to Hogwarts, Quirrell had not yet resigned. It was only after receiving the photo album I gave him that he decided to travel around the Muggle world. But Sebastian never expected that Quirrell would go to the forests of Albania. What's up? Which flowers make more beautiful specimens? How can I be so unlucky? When they met again at the Leaky Cauldron, Quirrell had been completely bewitched by Voldemort. During Sebastian's interaction with Quirrell, he was not yet possessed by Voldemort. Sebastian tried to probe Quirrell in both overt and covert ways, but Quirrell acted completely normal, as if nothing had happened. At that time, Sebastian knew that even if he took the initiative to make it clear, it would be useless and might even alert the enemy. However, Sebastian was still prepared to help him at the critical moment. But how and when to pull it is worth planning carefully. While Sebastian's thoughts were wandering, Dumbledore just looked at the special water cup on the table, wondering what he was thinking. After a long pause, Dumbledore finally spoke. Sebastian, I can get you the water you need. However, you should have heard that someone has set their sights on the Philosopher's Stone. So I need you to come with me. Protect the Philosopher's Stone. Chapter 81. Time flies and it is September 1st. Early in the morning, Swan's estate was in chaos. Harry. Have you got everything? Mia really didn't want Harry to leave. She didn't know how to express her reluctance, so she could only check Harry's luggage over and over again, fearing that he had forgotten something. I have everything, Aunt Mia. We packed it together last night. Why did you only bring so few snacks? Go get some more candy, biscuits, and Coke. No, Sebastian told me that eating too much sugar is bad for your teeth. Listen to him talking nonsense. Mia turned her head and glared at the cheerful Sebastian, then said gently to Harry, Don't worry, a bottle of tooth health potion will take care of it. Where are your clothes? Have you brought your school uniform and your everyday casual clothes? I've brought enough, Aunt Mia. No need to put more in the suitcase. There are too many clothes for me to wear. Harry felt helpless. He felt that Aunt Mia was exaggerating a bit. Fortunately, this is the wizarding world, and a box cast with a traceless stretch spell can solve everything. If this scene happened in the Muggle world, I'm afraid we would have to hire a moving company to deal with it. He looked up at Sebastian who was standing at the door and gave him a look for help. Sebastian. Why don't you try to persuade Aunt Mia? Sebastian shrugged innocently at Harry and spread his hands to show that there was nothing he could do. Harry, there is a kind of love called Mia who thinks there is still room in your suitcase. Just enjoy it. After all the belongings were packed, Sebastian drove a Muggle car and took Mia and Harry to King's Cross Station. On the way, Harry asked excitedly, Aunt Mia, you told me that there are 4 houses in Hogwarts. Which house should I go to? Ahem, Sebastian coughed quickly and said mysteriously, Harry, you will take a small boat across a black lake. Then the monster in the black lake will come and attack you. Seeing Harry's eyes widen in disbelief, Sebastian grinned. Don't worry, this is just a test. It won't really hurt you. Your performance in the test will directly determine which college you will be assigned to. Oh. So that's how it is. Sebastian was so nice. He told me such important information in advance so that I could be prepared. Otherwise, when the attack comes, I don't know how badly my performance will be. Harry squeezed his wand, determined to perform well. Sebastian looked up at the rearview mirror and just happened to see Mia giving him a reproachful look in the mirror. For a moment, an unspeakable tacit understanding spread between the two of them. Just after 10:30, Sebastian and his group arrived at King's Cross Station. On platform 9 3/4, an old red steam train was parked there quietly. A low roar came from its steam engine, and white smoke slowly rose from the chimney, filling the air. There was a glittering golden sign hanging on the body of the car, Hogwarts Express. The parents of the little wizards on the platform helped their children tidy up their robes from time to time, their faces revealing their pride and reluctance. Most of the new students were jumping on the platform, holding their wands, holding their parents' hands, and couldn't wait to board the train to the magical world. Senior students were greeting each other and enthusiastically discussing what they had seen and heard during the summer vacation. Some of them were already eager to get into the carriage to look for their friends. Harry looked at everything in front of him in disbelief. It turned out that this was platform 9 3/4. Just separated by a wall, the scene here has completely changed. An irrepressible excitement and anticipation surged in his heart. I wonder how fast this train is. Is it as fast as the night bus? I wonder if I can make new friends on the train? He followed Mia's footsteps and slowly walked to the end of the train. After finding an empty carriage, he got on the train and opened the window to talk to Mia. Sebastian stood aside, watching the two talking and greeting the little wizards passing by with a smile. It was not until the train whistle sounded that he walked forward, put his arm around Mia's shoulders, and waved goodbye to Harry. Harry, don't just sleep on the way, the scenery along the way is very beautiful. That's it, see you in the evening. To welcome the new semester, the Hogwarts Great Hall once again became magnificent. Sebastian sat in the professor's chair, looking at Lockhart sitting next to him with disdain. After Lockhart led Swan Media to crush the Daily Prophet, Sebastian fulfilled his promise. He suggested to Dumbledore that a short writing course be added, and recommended Lockhart as the professor of the course. Now, Lockhart, who had gotten what he wanted, was completely proud of himself. He wore the most gorgeous clothes, showed the most perfect smile, and signed autographs for the little wizards one by one. Oh my god, Lockhart looks even more handsome in person than on the magic TV. His acting is also great. I love it. Yes, yes. I also love watching the TV series he starred in. I watched the TV series he starred in 3 times this summer. He's really amazing. He's the screenwriter, director, and lead actor all by himself. Do you know how hard Lockhart works? What do you think Lockhart's autograph is worth? Should I ask him to sign a few more times? That way I can make a small fortune. Listening to the chattering of the little wizards, Sebastian's brain was about to explode. At this moment, he deeply felt how Snape looked at him last year. Seeing that Professor McGonagall was about to bring the first-year students to the auditorium, Sebastian quickly poked Lockhart with his arm. Hello. Don't get carried away. If Professor McGonagall sees you holding a signing event here, he will definitely not look at you in a good light. Lockhart understood Sebastian's signal immediately. He stood up and looked at the little ones in front of him. Thank you all for your love. Today's autograph session ends here. If you need any help, please feel free to visit me in my office. The students slowly dispersed and returned to their seats in 2s and 3s. The door of the auditorium slowly opened, and Professor McGonagall walked in solemnly, followed by a line of nervous little kids. She stopped in front of the professor's seat, motioned for the little wizards to line up, then solemnly took out the sorting hat and placed it on the stool. The sorting ceremony begins now. Students whose names are called, please come forward and put on the sorting hat for sorting. Sebastian watched the sorting ceremony with great interest, looking forward to the upcoming famous scene. Hannah Abbott. Hearing this familiar name, he leaned back in his chair and breathed a sigh of satisfaction. It's comfortable. Chapter 82. Harry stood in the line, his face flushed as he watched the little wizards around him walk towards the sorting hat one by one. Thinking of the commotion he had caused on the Black Lake, he wished he could find a crack in the ground to crawl into. He glanced at the grinning Sebastian with resentment, muttering to himself. Sebastian is such a liar. He actually said he wanted to duel with the water monster. I had just been shouting at my classmates not to be afraid. How stupid. Fortunately for Harry, ever since they entered the Great Hall and the sorting ceremony began, the attention of his classmates had been diverted away from him as if under a spell. Suddenly, he heard a complaint coming from not far away. How is it possible? Crabbe and Goyle were assigned to Hufflepuff. The sorting hat's judgment is not accurate at all. There must be something fishy going on here. Humph, it's fine for them to go to Hufflepuff. These two good-for-nothings will only bring shame to Slytherin. Hearing these harsh words, Harry looked up and found that the speaker was Malfoy, whom he had met before in Diagon Alley. He ignored it and just lowered his head silently, waiting for Professor McGonagall to call out his name. Harry Potter. Harry took a deep breath, and amid the discussions of the crowd, he slowly walked forward and put the sorting hat on his head. Well, it's difficult, very, very difficult. Which house should I assign you to? Hearing the voice ringing in his ears, Harry thought firmly in his heart, I want to go to Slytherin. In fact, long before coming to Hogwarts, Harry had already chosen Slytherin House as his first choice. After all, he had been spending the past 2 months with the Slytherin professors and had established a deep relationship with them. Professor Snape's patience and erudition made him very interested in potions, and Sebastian's elegance and strength made him admire him even more. Both professors left a deep and indelible impression on Harry. Now that he is in Hogwarts and still feels unfamiliar with everything, Harry naturally hopes to enter the college where these two mentors are located and continue to feel their teaching and care. As if it could see the thoughts in Harry's mind, the Sorting Hat whispered in his ear. Want to go to Slytherin? Well, this house can really help you achieve glory. In that case, you go, Gryffindor. The Sorting Hat's loud shout instantly froze Harry's smile on his face, and he almost doubted whether he had heard it wrongly. However, the cheers coming from the Gryffindor table came in waves, reminding him that this was not an illusion. Isn't it said that going to Slytherin will lead to glory? Why did you suddenly change your mind? Is it really like Malfoy said? This Sorting Hat is so worn out that its judgment is not accurate at all. Harry put the Sorting Hat back on the chair angrily, and as he turned to leave, he couldn't help but look up at the professor's seat. Professor Snape clapped slowly and expressionlessly, while Sebastian looked at him with a smile, his eyes full of blessing and encouragement. Harry gave the two professors a slightly apologetic smile, then took a deep breath and walked towards the busy Gryffindor table. The boy's troubles came and went quickly, and soon he was mingling with his Gryffindor friends and chatting happily. After everyone had eaten and drunk their fill, Dumbledore stood up and announced to everyone. This year, 2 professors joined Hogwarts. One is Professor Gilderoy Lockhart, who will be in charge of a new subject, writing. First-year students will learn how to write papers from Professor Lockhart every Saturday morning for 2 months. Following Dumbledore's introduction, Lockhart stood up and waved enthusiastically to the students. In an instant, the whole auditorium was boiling. Why can only first graders attend? It's not fair. Can we sit in on the lecture, Professor Lockhart? Professor, could you please sign a few more autographs for me? The hall was noisy and Dumbledore had to work hard to calm the little ones down. The other one is Professor Quirinus Quirrell. I believe many senior students know him. Before he finished speaking, the quiet auditorium became noisy again. Hey? Professor Quirrell is back, so where is Professor Swan? Merlin, I just entered my 3rd year this year and I'm thinking of signing up for Muggle studies. What should I do? Principal, you must be confused, aren't you? Harry recognized the man he had met in the leaky cauldron. His face was still as pale, but unlike before, he had a thick purple scarf wrapped around his head. Don't worry, Dumbledore used a sound amplification spell to suppress the noise in the hall. Your Professor Swan is still teaching Muggle studies. Professor Quirrell is in charge of the defense against the dark arts class. I'm sure you'll get along well. After the students were quiet again, Dumbledore continued, Next, I would like to announce a few precautions to everyone. This year, the school has launched a work-study program. Everyone has the opportunity to earn a lot of gold galleons. Please pay attention to the notice board for the specific process and standards. First-year students, please note that you are prohibited from entering the school's forbidden forest. I must warn everyone, if you don't want to encounter any accidents, please stay away from the corridor on the right side of the 4th floor. Finally, Professor Swan has something important to announce, so we'll ask him to speak. Harry was a little puzzled. Isn't Hogwarts the safest place in the wizarding world? Why is the corridor on the 4th floor dangerous? He really wanted to ask Percy, the prefect next to him, but he found that everyone, including Percy, was looking intently at Sebastian in the professor's chair. Sebastian stood up and responded to everyone's gaze with a smile. First of all, the time for the Quidditch school team selection has been set. It will still be at 8 a.m. on Saturday of the first week of school. Students who are interested in participating in the selection should not miss the selection time. The second thing is, according to convention, each of the new students will receive a protective badge in the style of the school emblem. In addition, Sebastian said with a mysterious smile, this year, every student will receive a mysterious gift. As soon as he finished speaking, balls of light, under Sebastian's control, fell precisely into the hands of each student. Hogwarts navigation map. With it, the new kids won't have to worry about getting lost. It's simple to operate. You can try it out when you return to the common room. Here, let's give a round of applause to Fred Weasley and George Weasley. Amidst the warm applause, Ronald looked at his brothers in surprise, shouting non-stop. That's impossible. The whole summer has passed and they haven't said anything. Nothing is impossible, little Ronnie. Fred patted Ronald on the shoulder, then he and George bowed to the crowd around them. After the banquet, Sebastian returned to Swan Manor. As soon as he entered the door, he opened his arms and shouted to Mia who was sitting on the sofa. Wife, Now there are only two of us, let's play a fun game. Mia dodged Sebastian's hug and giggled. Then come and catch me. Chapter 83. Just over a week later, Gryffindor's house scores had already pulled far ahead of other houses. Looking at the ruby in the Gryffindor score column, Sebastian became a little restless. What's going on? Didn't school just start 10 days ago? Why did Gryffindor score nearly 50 points more than the second place? After asking a few students, Sebastian figured out what happened and walked angrily towards the basement. I had been worried that at the end of the semester, Dumbledore would give Gryffindor extra points. Unexpectedly, there was no need to wait at all, the head of Slytherin had already become a traitor. Bang! The door to Snape's office was flung open. Snape, who was brewing a potion, only glanced at the person who came and then turned his attention back to the vitality tonic in the crucible. It seems that Professor Swan's mind is filled with ignatherum splendens again, and he has forgotten even the most basic etiquette. Oh! I see. It must be that Professor Swan's glory is gone, and all the limelight has been taken away by Professor Lockhart. But please be kind and don't take your anger out on the poor potions professor, okay? When it comes to sharp tongue, Sebastian knows clearly that he is no match for Snape. So, facing Snape's sarcastic tone, Sebastian pretended not to hear it. Immunity. Besides, it was actually very easy to break Snape's defense. Sebastian always had his own unique skills in this regard. He released his magical perception and carefully sensed the potion in the crucible. The black root was added too late, otherwise the quality of the potion could be improved a bit more. Hearing this, Snape's breathing became heavier. He was about to make a sarcastic remark when Sebastian interrupted him. Don't talk, stir the potion now, snort. This potion is totally unbearable. Snape suppressed his displeasure and put the stirring stick into the potion, stirring it 7 times clockwise. When the potion in the cauldron had completely stabilized, he stood up straight, squinted at Sebastian, and said unhappily, "What's the matter? What's going on with the Gryffindor house system? Could you please explain it to this poor potions professor?" Oh, Snape threw his black robes aside and returned to his seat, just some reasonable extra points. Reasonable bonus points? Sebastian laughed out loud, he stood up straight and imitated Snape's slow and measured speech. Mr. Potter, congratulations on becoming a first-year potions assistant. 10 points added. Mr. Potter's posture in brewing potions is very standard, 5 points. Mr. Potter, you're the first one to brew the scabies potion. 5 points. Mr. Potter, when Neville put the porcupine quills into the crucible, you reminded him in time and prevented a disaster from happening. Add 20 points. Snape was furious when Sebastian imitated him. He straightened his black robe and replied in a flat tone. As the professor of potions, I have the right to give extra points to outstanding students. You are so stubborn. Fortunately, Voldemort didn't know that your mouth was such a top-notch alchemical material. If Voldemort uses your mouth to make a Horcrux, then even a basilisk fang and the sword of Gryffindor won't stop him from winning. Sebastian sneered, took out a piece of parchment filled with teaching assistant regulations and placed it in front of Snape. Would you please take your eyes off Harry and read the regulations carefully? The teaching assistant is paid by Hogwarts, so it is only natural for Harry to help his classmates in potions class. This is the duty of the teaching assistant. It would be excessive for you to add any more points. You better pay attention to the impact. Snape's face was expressionless as he picked up the regulations and read them carefully. Boom boom boom. Just then, there was a knock on the office door. Snape continued reading without looking up and said, "Come in." The door opened and a third-year Slytherin wizard walked in. He breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Sebastian. "Thank God, Professor Swan, you are really here. Please go to the Great Hall. Malfoy is going to duel with Potter." Hearing this, Sebastian turned his head and looked at Snape, then they started walking towards the Great Hall together. Before he even reached the door of the auditorium, Sebastian heard Ronald's voice coming from inside. "Fred and George, you two are traitors. Instead of helping Harry deal with Slytherin, you agreed with Marcus to arrange for someone to find the professor. You guys just got selected for the school team and you're already sucking up to the captain, right? You two spineless guys." "Ronald." Hermione's voice rang out, "This kind of thing really requires the professor to step in." "Little Ronnie," Fred replied to Ronald with a smile, "it has nothing to do with Marcus. Even if he doesn't arrange for someone to find Professor Swan, we will go find him." "Yes, George agreed. Whenever there is a conflict between students from different colleges, they must go to Professor Swan. This is the rule set by Professor Swan. I told you, don't call me little Ronnie. After hearing the twins' explanation, Ronald was still a little indignant, so he muttered softly. Professor Swan is from Slytherin. Who can guarantee that he won't be biased? Marcus, who was standing behind Malfoy, chuckled, don't worry, Professor Swan is always fair. Marcus laughed inwardly. He has personal experience in this regard. When he first joined the school team last year, he had conflicts with students from other colleges. As a result, after learning the whole story, Professor Swan not only deducted his own points, but also personally watched him recite the school rules and regulations for an hour at the door of the auditorium during lunch. From then on, Marcus changed his attitude and became a staunch advocate for maintaining peace in the academy. Gradually, conflicts between colleges became less frequent. After all, no one wants to stand at the door of the auditorium and be looked at like a monkey. Thinking of this, Marcus felt a hint of anticipation in his heart and smiled with glee. Seeing Marcus' malicious smile, Hermione felt a little worried, but she couldn't tell what was wrong with it. She glanced at the crowd and found that apart from Malfoy's uneasy face, there was no tense atmosphere at all. Both Gryffindor and Slytherin students looked like they were enjoying the show. It seemed as if everyone was looking forward to Professor Swan's arrival. The professor is here. A shout was heard in the distance, and then the crowd parted to both sides, revealing a few little kids standing in the middle. Sebastian walked in, and as the students talked about it, he immediately understood that it was the conflict caused by Neville's memory ball in the first flying class. Mr. Malfoy, you will be deducted 10 points from Slytherin for bullying your classmates. Sebastian cleared a clean area and said to Malfoy and Harry. Aren't you going to duel? Professor Snape and I will personally witness this for you. Come on, both players please take your positions. Chapter 84. Standing on the duel arena cleared by the professor, Malfoy felt extremely panicked. What's going on? That's not how the script was written. Shouldn't Potter have agreed to a duel at midnight, and then been caught red-handed by the caretaker Filch? Why were they surrounded as soon as the duel was mentioned, and why did they look like they were enjoying the show? Why don't the Slytherin companions stand up for themselves? Why did Marcus call the professor here? I don't understand it at all. Although Malfoy was panicked, he still held on for the sake of his face, looking fearless. Although he was a little nervous, he did not think that he would lose to the savior Potter. After all, he was the heir of the Malfoy family. Gradually, Malfoy felt that the surroundings became quieter and he could no longer hear the whispers of his classmates. He took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. Then he tightened his grip on the wand in his hand and stared at the opposite side with full concentration. Potter, come on. Let me show you how powerful the old pureblood family is. From today on, no one can underestimate the name Malfoy. This is a small duel, so everything is kept simple and neither side needs to salute. Listen to my command, 3-2-1, start. Fainted. As soon as the countdown ended, Malfoy took the initiative. He wanted to seize the initiative and knock the damn Potter down in one breath. To his surprise, he saw that the other party easily avoided his spell by just turning sideways. Impossible. How can you hide so easily? Potter couldn't be that good. Malfoy couldn't believe what he saw. He gritted his teeth and continued to cast spells at the other party. His breathing became heavier and heavier, and he found that Potter had dodged all his attacks by just dodging left and right a few times. Malfoy was growing frustrated. So far, his spells hadn't even touched the edge of Potter's clothes, and he felt that his provocation was a joke. A thought came to his mind, he was doomed to lose. Then, a strong sense of unwillingness rose in his heart. He didn't want to admit defeat like a clown, so he shouted at Potter angrily. Potter! Are you going to keep hiding like a rat? Fight back! Show me what you can do! Hearing Malfoy's roar, Harry was a little confused. He didn't understand why the other party was angry. He dodged the spell just to get a feel for Malfoy's background. After all, this was his first time dueling with someone of the same age, and he wanted to see how strong the opponent was. However, in Harry's eyes, Malfoy's wand swing was too big and his attacking intention was too obvious. You don't have to think too much to see through the attack route of the opponent's spell. So, isn't it normal to dodge a few spells? He felt that Malfoy was not very strong and he could win easily. But Harry did not look down on Malfoy because of this. After all, Malfoy came from a pure-blood family and he might have some hidden tricks. He took the time to glance at the students who were watching, and found that both Hermione and Ronald had their mouths wide open in disbelief. Harry suddenly realized that he had thought too highly of Malfoy. The thought of this made him feel somewhat dull, so he pointed his wand at Malfoy. He remembered Professor Swan's instructions that once he attacked, he must make sure the opponent completely lose the ability to resist, both magically and physically. Expelliarmus. Everyone is petrified. Imprison quickly. After casting 3 spells in succession, Malfoy's wand flew out of his hand, his expression froze on his face, and his whole body was tied up with thick ropes. Hiss! The young wizards watching gasped. Is this Harry Potter? So strong. Is this the power of the Savior? Seeing this, everyone knew that the winner had been decided, and the Gryffindor students rushed forward and surrounded Harry. Harry, Ronald said loudest, tell me, how did you become so strong? Yes, tell everyone about it, the little wizards asked in unison. Students from other houses did not leave immediately either, they also wanted to hear what Harry would say. Harry felt a little embarrassed when he heard everyone's praise, and could only whisper back, Professor Swan taught me. In an instant, there was no space around Harry. Everyone surrounded Sebastian and even Snape was pushed aside. Hermione worked hard to squeeze to the front, raised her head and shouted loudly, Professor Swan, I also want your guidance. Yes. We need guidance too. Professor, you can't be partial. We are your students too. Professor Swan, please teach us how to duel. After seeing Harry's strength, the young wizards were extremely envious. Now, after knowing the reason, they are unwilling to let go of this opportunity and they also want to become stronger. Listening to the students' requests, Sebastian looked thoughtful. I originally planned to improve the combat effectiveness of my students. We don't ask them to fight for Hogwarts in the future, but at least they should be able to protect themselves. Maybe some of my plans can be brought forward. Thinking of this, he waved his hand to quiet the little wizards. Since everyone wants to learn, I decided to open a duel club. Everyone gather in the auditorium at 8 o'clock on Friday night. Dissolution. After the young wizards had completely dispersed, Sebastian looked at Malfoy, who had been freed from the curse. He lowered his head and stood quietly beside Snape, without any of his previous arrogance. To be honest, Sebastian has always had complicated feelings towards the young wizard Draco Malfoy. From the first time he appeared in the original book, it can be seen that this is a child spoiled by his parents, and the first thing he asked was, what will happen to my dad? He was proud of his pure-bloodedness and always carried himself in a haughty manner, as if the entire magical world should bow down to him. However, after Voldemort's return, Malfoy's world changed forever. He witnessed with his own eyes his high and mighty father, Lucius Malfoy, humbled and grovelled before the Dark Lord. Malfoy Manor, the family manor that he was once so proud of, was also seized by Voldemort as his headquarters. All this ruthlessly shattered Malfoy's pride. He began to reflect and suffered from inner torment. Perhaps it was this complex psychology that made him publicly declare that he could not recognize Harry when he was captured and taken to Malfoy Manor, thus saving the lives of Harry and the other two. Sebastian felt that perhaps from that moment on, Malfoy no longer wanted to see Voldemort's victory. From the moment Malfoy entered school, Sebastian intended to train him well. However, simple preaching or scolding is of no use to this proud child. Now, with Harry's help, Malfoy's arrogance was defeated. Sebastian hoped that Malfoy would see the light of day and realize that bloodlines were useless. He wanted Malfoy to change from now on. In this way, Malfoy might not become a hero immediately, but at least he is no longer just the child who only knows pride and prejudice. What's more, Sebastian expected more from Malfoy. He felt that Draco had great talent and that it should not be wasted. As a student of Slytherin College, Sebastian also hoped to train him well and let him carry the banner of Slytherin College. Sebastian walked over to Malfoy and patted his shoulder gently. Draco, follow me. Come to my office and have a good talk. Chapter 85. The two walked all the way to Sebastian's office. Looking at Malfoy, who was sitting on the sofa in a depressed mood, Sebastian asked gently, Draco, what would you like to drink? Would you like a glass of delicious pumpkin juice? If you're really in a bad mood, I can make an exception and let you have a glass of butterbeer. Of course, it's the non-alcoholic kind. Hearing Sebastian's words, Malfoy didn't look up, but replied in a hoarse voice, No, Professor, I'm not thirsty now. Sebastian raised an eyebrow. It seems that this blow is greater than I expected. Is this a shattered outlook on life? This won't do. Sebastian didn't want to see Malfoy become depressed like this. Heart disease needs to be treated with heart medicine. According to Sebastian's understanding, the Malfoy family has always cared most about their own family. Therefore, if you want to help this little guy open up his heart, you have to start with the family he cares about most. Sebastian adjusted his sitting position and used his best chicken soup method. Before we start today's conversation, I want you to do a multiple choice question. You want me to treat you like a child and have a conversation between a professor and a student? Or should we, as heirs of pure-blood families, have a conversation between adults? Sebastian's voice turned a little more serious. Draco, look me in the eye and tell me your choice. Malfoy's heart moved when he heard what Sebastian said. I choose the second one. In this case, I will no longer be a professor. You will see a profit-seeking businessman and my ugliest side. Our conversation will be very realistic and cold. Are you sure you want to choose this? Hearing such serious words, Malfoy hesitated slightly. However, he does not like preaching, and can even be said to hate preaching, even if the other party is a professor. Moreover, he has always regarded himself as the heir of the Malfoy family, and he is proud of this identity. Therefore, he wanted to have an equal dialogue with Sebastian as the heir of a pure-blood family. He wanted to prove himself to Sebastian, to prove that he was a qualified heir to the Malfoy family. Thinking of this, Malfoy straightened up and looked directly at Sebastian with his still red eyes. I choose to be the heir to the Malfoy family, I'm sure. In that case, Mr. Malfoy, Sebastian began gently, let's assume for a moment. If your father now hands over all the Malfoy family's assets to you, how will you develop them? Do you have a plan in mind? Malfoy was a little speechless. He had never paid attention to the specific business of his family, so he was unable to answer Sebastian's question. However, he didn't want to show his weakness, so he could only bite the bullet and answer, just let the family business continue to operate as it is now. I believe my father will teach me. Sebastian smiled softly at the childish answer. Oh, just maintaining the status quo? I thought you would have greater ambitions and would want to take the Malfoy industry to a higher level with your own strength. Malfoy felt a little annoyed when he heard the teasing words, but before he could say anything, he heard Sebastian continue. Let me ask you, when you take over the family business, what kind of employees will you hire? Pure-blood employees, half-blood employees, or muggle-born employees? Of course it's the pure-blood employees. Malfoy answered confidently. Sebastian smiled and said, we are all pure-blood. Why should we work for your Malfoy family? Wouldn't it be better to just inherit the family business? Let's take a step back and say that I am a poor pure-blood wizard. There are many industries in the wizarding world. What can your Malfoy family do to attract me to work there? Hearing this, Malfoy's confidence weakened a little. Then, I will recruit half-blood employees. If that doesn't work, I can recruit muggle wizards. Mr. Malfoy, your answer makes me laugh. Sebastian chuckled. Don't you always look down on them? Do you want to think about your attitude towards half-blood wizards and muggle wizards? From what I've observed, you always look superior and have a very contemptuous attitude towards them. To put it bluntly, half-blood wizards are just maggots in your eyes, and muggle wizards are even worse than bugs, just mudbloods, right? Malfoy opened his mouth, wanting to refute what Sebastian said, but these were indeed his true thoughts. But, so what? So what if the Malfoy family is high and mighty? As long as you raise the salary a little, there will be a steady stream of employees working for you. He can say this to his employees with complete confidence. If you don't do it, there are plenty of people who will. As if he could see through Malfoy's thoughts, Sebastian smiled slightly and said, do you think there will always be employees working for you? 20 years ago, your idea was not a big problem. At that time, basically more than 90% of the industry was under the control of pure-blood families. Everyone offers the same conditions and everyone has the same attitude. Muggle wizards have basically no choice. But, Sebastian changed the subject, have you ever thought that everything has changed since Swan alchemy started to reform? On one side is Swan alchemy, who is friendly to all wizards, and on the other side is Malfoy, who is high and mighty. If it were you, what would you choose? What if one day Muggle wizards and half-blood wizards unite to resist the Malfoy family, and Swan Alchemy abandons you as a partner. What will you do? Hearing this, Malfoy was a little flustered. He remembered what his father said, that the reason why the Malfoy family lived a prosperous life was inseparable from Swan's alchemy. If Swan Alchemy abandoned the Malfoy family, the family's business would definitely suffer a devastating blow. This is impossible, right? Malfoy's voice trembled a little. Swan Alchemy and the Malfoy family are very good partners. Really? Looking at Malfoy's panic, Sebastian gave a meaningful smile. Mr. Malfoy, do you want to hear the reality? The cruelest reality in the adult world. All cooperation is based on interests. If the Malfoy family's reputation is too bad and affects the development of Swan Alchemy, then Swan Alchemy will definitely consider changing its partners. By that time, how many people do you think will attack your Malfoy family? Hearing this, Malfoy was completely deflated. He had no idea why Sebastian told him this. Could it be that Swan Alchemy is ready to abandon the Malfoy family? Seeing Malfoy looking anxious, Sebastian leaned back in his chair and spoke leisurely. Mr. Malfoy, you are really not as good as your father. When he was your age, he had already started thinking about developing the Malfoy family. If you continue to be such a dandy, I can guarantee that the Malfoy family will decline. Tell me, what do you want to do? What should you do? What will you do? Chapter 86. What do I do? Malfoy could no longer straighten his back. He sat there dejectedly, asking himself this question over and over again. However, his knowledge was so limited that he had no idea what to do. Suddenly, he had an idea and figured out something. I am so stupid. The other party definitely didn't say this just to scare me. So he raised his head and asked carefully, Professor Swan, how about we have a conversation between a professor and a student? Will you tell me what to do? Ha 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 ha. Sebastian laughed heartily. He just liked the Slytherin student's cleverness and flexibility. If he was facing a Gryffindor iron-headed lion now, he would probably point his finger at his nose and call him despicable. Sebastian stood up and walked over to sit next to Malfoy. Draco, the answer to your question is actually very simple. That is to treat people equally and make more friends. As long as you have more and more friends, your business will become easier and easier. The British wizarding world is so small, and there is only one magic school. This means that all the classmates you meet in school are your potential customers and employees. Think about it, if you offend them all now, won't it bring a lot of potential enemies to the Malfoy family? Draco, Sebastian changed the subject, what qualities do you think are most important to us Slytherins? What quality do you value most? Is there any doubt about this? Malfoy blurted out, blood. Hearing this answer, Sebastian smiled and shook his head. If bloodline was all that mattered, then there wouldn't be any half-bloods in Slytherin house. Remember, the qualities we value most are shrewdness and ambition. Only a smart mind can prevent you from doing stupid things, such as making enemies everywhere. Ambition can help you understand what you are pursuing. As long as you have the motivation to pursue your ambition, your life will not be mediocre. As for bloodline? Haha. Sebastian sneered, showing a contemptuous expression. If bloodline represented everything, there wouldn't be so many impoverished pure-blood families in the wizarding world. If bloodline meant anything, you wouldn't have lost the duel with Mr. Potter so badly. When Malfoy heard about the duel, his face immediately darkened. He couldn't help but feel aggrieved, the professors were too partial to Potter. It would be fine if professors from other colleges favored Potter, but even the dean of his own college favored Potter and even arranged for Potter to become an assistant teacher in the potions class. What made him even more angry was that Potter's superb dueling skills were actually taught by the Slytherin professor himself. Malfoy was filled with resentment and confusion. He is obviously a Slytherin student, so why does Potter get such preferential treatment? He raised his head and looked at Sebastian, his eyes full of grievance and confusion. Seeing Malfoy's aggrieved look, Sebastian couldn't help but rub his head. Draco, you are actually quite amazing. The requirements for the stunning spell are quite high. It is amazing that you can use it now. Normally, these powerful offensive spells are somewhat difficult for second-year wizards. That was no use, Malfoy muttered, I still lost to Potter without even touching the corner of his clothes. Don't underestimate yourself. According to my observation, the only first-year wizard who is better than you is Harry Potter. Professor Swan, can I still catch up with Potter, or even surpass Potter? More than Potter? Sebastian smiled. Our only opponent has always been ourselves. Draco, remember, never think of yourself as being so dim just because you see others shining. Everyone has his own pace. Work hard, but don't rush. All success takes time to accumulate. But, Malfoy whispered, I still want to surpass Potter. If you really want to surpass Potter, then you have to be ruthless and work hard. Try to become a great person. Say goodbye to the past and become a better self. Remember this, you won't know how good you are until you try your best. You were born to be a mountain, not a blade of grass. After drinking several bowls of chicken soup, Malfoy was so excited that his blood boiled. He wanted to find a place to practice spells right away. Seeing Malfoy's eyes light up and his fists clenched, Sebastian knew the time had come, so he struck while the iron was hot. Draco, Professor Snape and I have high hopes for you. Looking at the entire Slytherin, your talent is one of the best. We all hope that you can grow up quickly and become a Slytherin flag that everyone likes. Sebastian stood up and extended his right hand towards Malfoy. Draco, let's work together to make Slytherin House a better place. Not to disappoint Sebastian, Malfoy stood up abruptly and shook his hand firmly. Professor Swan, I will definitely make changes and live up to your and Professor Snape's expectations. Malfoy left happily, and unlike when he came, he held his head high and walked with a dash of spirit. After the duel with Malfoy, Ronald couldn't wait to pester Harry, begging him to teach him a few moves so that he could show off his skills in the dueling club. After hearing Ronald's request, Hermione also asked Harry to teach her some dueling skills in advance. So, after dinner, Harry took Ronald and Hermione to an open space outside the Quidditch field and began practicing spells. They did not go to the dormitory until the sun had completely set. However, on their way back to the dormitory, a sudden change of stairs brought them to the fourth-floor corridor. I think, Hermione gasped as she looked at the long-abandoned corridor in front of her, this is the corridor that Headmaster Dumbledore mentioned where people would die. Then what are we waiting for? Let's get out of here. Ronald's legs started shaking with fear when he heard this. Unfortunately, just as they turned around to leave, they saw a cat squatting at the stairs. It's Filch's cat. Hermione also became panicked. If we're caught, Gryffindor will lose a lot of points. In more serious cases, we will be expelled. She looked at a room at the end of the corridor and called to the two of them, hurry up and hide in the room first. Look at the good way you lead us. Ronald turned the door handle hard, but found that the door did not move at all. The door is locked. We are finished. Go away, useless thing. Hermione pushed Ronald away and took out her wand and pointed it at the door lock. Open it. As soon as he finished speaking, the door lock opened and a group of people filed in, hiding inside and not daring to make any sound. Harry put his ear to the door and heard Filch leave after asking a few questions, so he whispered, Filch has left, let's go. Seeing that no one responded to him, Harry turned around to see what was going on, but the scene before him made his hands and feet turn cold. A huge three-headed vicious dog was sleeping in the room, and the stench from breathing was so strong that Harry could hardly open his eyes. Harry was extremely nervous, knowing that even if he tried his best, he would not be able to do any harm to the monster. So he pulled Hermione and Ronald back step by step, and retreated to the door the moment the vicious dog opened its eyes. They ran as fast as they could until they reached the Gryffindor common room, where they stopped, breathless. There is such a monster in the castle. Ronald, who escaped, was somewhat relieved. If the monster just now was awake, my mother wouldn't be able to collect my body. It's unbelievable. This is what the books say about Hogwarts, the safest school in the wizarding world. Hermione panted heavily. She was extremely tired after running all the way. She recalled what she had just seen, the dog seemed to be guarding something. It was standing on a trap door. Guarding something? Hearing Hermione's words, Harry immediately thought of the small package he and Hagrid had picked up from Gringotts, and he was about to say something when he heard Hermione say, We are thankful that we were not bitten to death or expelled. Harry, thank you for your spells teaching today. If you don't have anything else to do, I'm going to bed. I need to get enough energy for tomorrow's duel club. Chapter 87. At 8 o'clock on Friday night, the Hogwarts Great Hall was completely transformed. All the tables and chairs were put away, and the whole space seemed exceptionally empty. The auditorium was packed with students who wanted to join the duel club, as well as young wizards who came just to watch. In the center of the auditorium, a magnificent duel arena stands tall. The students stood around the arena, talking to each other excitedly, looking forward to the upcoming magic showdown. Isn't Professor Swan the professor of Muggle studies? Is it reliable for him to teach us how to duel? Didn't you watch the duel yesterday? Potter himself admitted that he was taught by Professor Swan. Really? It just feels weird. I think it would be much better if Professor Lockhart were the one to teach. He's so powerful in the TV show. Yes, yes. I also think Professor Lockhart is stronger. After all, Professor Swan doesn't have any outstanding achievements. Last semester, Fred was captured in the Forbidden Forest and was rescued by Professor Snape. Professor Swan just happened to pick them up. Hearing such remarks, Fred couldn't help but roll his eyes. Family members, who understands? There are actually people who doubt Professor Swan's ability. If they knew the truth about last semester, they would be scared to death. Hateful. I still have a gag order on me, otherwise I would definitely jump out and slap them in the face. However, although he couldn't tell the specific details, Fred still emphasized it to his friends around him. Don't listen to those people's nonsense. Professor Swan's strength is definitely beyond your imagination. Harry completely agreed with Fred's words. He had been training closely with Sebastian for 2 months and had a deep understanding of Sebastian's strength. Harry whispered to Ronald and Hermione, who were standing around him, "Professor Swan will be here soon. You must study hard. He is really amazing." As soon as he finished speaking, loud shouts from the little wizards were heard at the entrance of the auditorium. "The professors are here." Seeing the 5 professors coming in, the auditorium was completely boiling. Hundreds of students were extremely excited and started discussing the luxurious lineup of professors in front of them with their classmates. "Oh my god, Professor Lockhart looks so handsome today. This sky blue robe suits him so well. Professor Flitwick, your battle suit is great. You look very smart. Professor Snape looks good too, especially in that black robe, so stylish. Professor McGonagall is still so elegant. I wish I could be as elegant as her. Professor Swan really can't handle it, but he still has the brains to invite other professors." Lockhart walked to a specially made platform behind the ring in 2 or 3 steps, looked at the little wizards with a smile, and then cast an amplification spell on himself. "Good evening, everyone. I am tonight's host, Lockhart. Tonight, 4 masters will show you the secrets of dueling. Let us welcome them with the warmest applause." In an instant, there was thunderous applause and the little wizards were very satisfied with this lineup. "Professor Lockhart, will you help?" "I am not good enough, so I won't go up and make a fool of myself," Lockhart smiled. "My job tonight is to commentate on the scene." Professor Lockhart is so humble and a gentleman. Upon hearing Lockhart's answer, several little witches' eyes sparkled with stars. "Why isn't Professor Sprout here?" a voice came from the Hufflepuff crowd. Hearing this question, Lockhart replied with an exaggerated expression, "Professor Sprout is worried that her magical plants are too lethal and may accidentally hurt you." Seeing Lockhart handling the situation with ease, Sebastian felt relieved. After learning about the duel club, Lockhart pestered Sebastian, crying and shouting that he wanted to show up. Considering Lockhart's extraordinary eloquence, Sebastian arranged a host role for him and also served as a part-time on-site commentator. Now it seems that it is perfect to let Lockhart answer these trivial questions. Okay, everyone is waiting impatiently, let's turn our attention to the ring. Next, the 4 professors will present 3 exciting exhibition matches for everyone. First, Professor McGonagall and Professor Swan will demonstrate the use of transfiguration in a duel. To be honest, when Professor McGonagall showed up, the young wizards guessed that transfiguration would be involved in tonight's duel club. But no one really could think of the role of transfiguration in a duel. In the minds of young wizards, duels are often 2 people throwing spells at each other, like Malfoy and Potter. So, when Professor McGonagall stood on the stage, the students opened their eyes wide with curiosity, afraid of missing any details. At this time, Sebastian had already placed a few chairs on the stage and handed a box of wizard chess to Professor McGonagall. He nodded to Professor McGonagall and stepped aside. Professor McGonagall changed his usual serious look and explained to everyone with a smile, "Transfiguration is a very delicate subject. Proficient use of transfiguration can enrich our means of fighting the enemy. Usually, a bright light is associated with the casting of a spell, such as a stunning spell." Professor McGonagall raised his hand and a red spell shot towards the wall of the Great Hall. "But this light often reveals our attack intentions and routes. Transfiguration is different. It doesn't produce any light and is very concealed. As he was speaking, several chairs in the field had quietly transformed into majestic lions. After you master transfiguration, you can use any object around your opponent to attack him unexpectedly and make him defenseless. Cool! The little wizards cried out in surprise. Those lions looked no different from real ones. They looked extremely ferocious, as if they were ready to attack the enemy at any time. A clever student remembered the wizard chess in Professor McGonagall's hand, so he shouted, "Professor McGonagall, what is the use of the wizard chess in your hand? Is it also used for transformation?" "Of course," Professor McGonagall replied, "there are times when we don't have the right transfiguration props. At this time, some small gadgets that you carry with you can come in handy. Take the wizard chess as an example." Professor McGonagall took out a few wizard chess pieces from the chess box and threw them casually. These thumb-sized chess pieces spun in the air, and the moment they landed on the ground, they turned into majestic giants more than 3 meters tall. They seemed to have just woken up from a deep sleep, and all of them had serious expressions. They stood in a circle around Professor McGonagall, like well-trained guards, protecting her firmly in the middle. Merlin's socks. The strong visual impact made the little wizards open their mouths wide. So cool! I really want to learn this. Hermione's eyes sparkled. She felt that Professor McGonagall was like a queen, guarded by these giants. Ronald was so excited that he jumped up and down. "As long as you bring a box of wizard chess, it's like carrying a team of soldiers with you. It's so impressive." Different from the excited crowd, Harry in the crowd felt a little depressed. Why did Sebastian say that he was not compatible with transfiguration? He also said that he has a simple mind and is more suitable for straightforward approach, and that he is more suitable for fast attack. I didn't think too much about it at first, but now transfiguration seems so cool. Harry looked at Professor McGonagall on the stage, his eyes full of envy. "Never mind, let's learn it first. Anyway, you won't die if you try." Chapter 88. Seeing the little wizard's eyes widened and their mouths opened into an O shape, Professor McGonagall's smile became even brighter. She folded her arms across her chest and nodded slightly, looking happy and confident, as if to say, "Amazing, right? This is just the beginning." Professor McGonagall turned to look at Sebastian. "Sebastian, please cooperate." Sebastian readily agreed and came to the other side of the duel arena. He raised his wand to his chest and bowed to Professor McGonagall. Lockhart's voice sounded at the right time, 3-2-1, go. As soon as he finished speaking, Sebastian attacked. Fainted. Faced with the incoming spell, Professor McGonagall did not panic at all. Under her control, a lion leaped up and blocked the spell. "Did you see that?" Lockhart explained diligently while standing on the platform. "Using transfiguration can easily block the enemy's spell. If your attack frequency is too low and your attack strength is not strong enough, you won't be able to break through these deformed objects at all. Look carefully, all the transformed objects in the arena are pressing towards Professor Swan, but under Professor Swan's spell, these objects cannot even take a step beyond the center line of the arena." Professor McGonagall was not at all flustered by the overwhelming curses. She just moved her feet lightly, and all the curses fell on the guards around her. Elegant. So elegant. The situation on the field was completely within Sebastian's expectations. This was only the first stage of the exhibition match. He had discussed with Professor McGonagall that the first stage was just to demonstrate to the young wizards how to use transfiguration to counter the enemy's spells. Seeing that the effect was almost there, Sebastian increased the strength of the spell and pushed the exhibition match into the second stage, demonstrating the diversity of transfiguration attacks. "Oh my god!" The little wizards screamed again. They saw the lions in the field split apart one by one and shattered into pieces of wood. In the blink of an eye, these pieces of wood turned into mice and rushed towards Sebastian in large numbers. Facing the attacking rats, Sebastian used his group attack skill, Blazing Flame, to burn them all to ashes. Professor Swan's use of fire against the enemy is indeed a good idea. Lockhart's voice sounded again. "However, we must not be careless when facing the Master of Transfiguration." As soon as he finished speaking, the flames on the ground turned into flaming lions and attacked Sebastian again. Seeing the incoming fire lion, Sebastian knew the time had come, and the next step was to provide everyone with a wonderful transfiguration feast. Clear water like a spring. Instantly, thick water columns shot into the field. Under Sebastian's transfiguration, these water columns turned into giant pythons made of water, strangling the flame lion. Then he pulled out a few wizard chess pieces and threw them around. These chess pieces instantly turned into equally huge warriors and fought fiercely with the giant beside Professor McGonagall. They were like two well-trained armies, fighting in the center of the auditorium. The clanging sounds of weapons colliding created a spectacular scene. Under Sebastian's exquisite control, the transformed soldiers on both sides fell one by one until they all died. Then he waved his wand and cleaned up the mess on the ring. "That's beautiful," Lockhart shouted. "Let's give a big round of applause to the two professors." Professor McGonagall walked down the stage with a smile amid the cheers of the students. The auditorium was illuminated by the lights in the evening as bright as day, and the air was filled with a mixture of tension and excitement. The second person to come on stage was Professor Flitwick. He walked quickly onto the stage without waiting for Lockhart's announcement. He couldn't wait to show everyone the exquisiteness of the spell. For tonight's exhibition match, he specially put on the uniform he wore when he participated in duel competitions when he was young. Although the fabric of the battle robe is a little old, it still exudes a solemn and murderous aura, and every trace of wear and tear records his glorious achievements in those years. As the champion of the duel tournament, he has countless tips to share with everyone. He cleared his throat and said to the young wizards, "I will share some tips with you from the perspective of spells. If you want to improve your dueling skills, it's best to learn spells specifically from the three aspects of attack, defense, and disruption. Such as the stunning spell and the petrifying spell for attack, the iron armor spell for defense, the smoke screen spell for disruption, and so on." In addition, Professor Flitwick raised his voice. Different spells combined together will produce different sparks. For example, the water creation spell and the freezing spell together can create ice to attack the enemy. As he spoke, he glanced at Sebastian and introduced him to the young wizards. "Professor Swan is the best in this area. Professor Flitwick is indeed a master of spells." He explained to the young wizards in an easy-to-understand way the combined usage of various spells. In his mouth, some simple spells can have different uses. The young wizards nodded repeatedly as they listened, and some clever ones had already taken out their shorthand quills to write down everything he said. Magic spells are extensive and profound. If you want to achieve success in this area, you need to spend a lot of time exploring and practicing. Then, Professor Flitwick called Sebastian together and put on a spell show for the young wizards. His movements were so graceful, as if the wand in his hand was not a tool for performing magic, but a baton. As for those spells, they were an invisible band under his command. Facing Professor Flitwick's attack, Sebastian was not to be outdone and always found the most appropriate spell to resolve the opponent's offensive. The wide variety of spells made Lockhart mute, and he really couldn't understand the tricks behind them. Fortunately, Professor McGonagall saw his predicament and started explaining it to everyone. Under Professor McGonagall's explanation, the young wizards gradually understood the essence of it and cheered for the professors on the stage. Finally, amid the cheers of the little wizards, the two put away their wands at the same time, ending the exhibition match. Following Professor Flitwick, Snape strode onto the stage, his black robes whirring behind him as he walked so fast. "What can Professor Snape teach us?" Ronald was terrified of this strict potions professor and complained to Harry in a low voice, "Teach us how to poison our opponents." Ronald. Harry was a little dissatisfied with Ronald's complaint. "I think Professor Snape is also very strong. Let's wait and see." Snape stood on the ring and looked around expressionlessly. The young wizard was so quiet that for a moment he felt like he was back in potions class. Unlike the previous two professors, Snape's voice sounded, "I will not teach you how to use various spells. What you need to learn is how to respond to danger." Chapter 89. How to respond to danger. At Hogwarts? Is it necessary? But it sounds very practical. The young wizards looked at each other, and then looked at Snape with shining eyes. Under their expectant gazes, Snape spoke slowly. "Originally, these contents should be taught by your Professor Garlick, but now it seems that he is completely incapable of doing so." Oh, a suppressed low cry came from the crowd. Professor Garlick? This must be a mockery of Professor Quirrell. After all, he was the only person in all of Hogwarts who reeked of garlic. Harry and Ronald looked at each other, and they both saw a hint of excitement in each other's eyes. To be honest, before coming to Hogwarts, Harry was full of expectations for this place. He thought that every professor here was of high level, just like Professor Snape. Unexpectedly, the appearance of Professor Quirrell completely shattered his fantasy. Every time in class, Professor Quirrell would just stutter as he read the text, without any original ideas at all, as if he was just wasting time. Even if the little wizard slept in his class, he didn't care at all, as if it had nothing to do with him. In this regard, he actually liked Professor Snape more, because although Professor Snape was strict in potions class, he really wanted his students to learn real things. Hearing Snape's sarcasm, Professor McGonagall opened his mouth, wanting to remind him, but after thinking about Professor Quirrell's poor performance, he didn't say anything. I want to remind everyone that life is not a dueling club. When in danger, those scum-like dark wizards will not follow any etiquette. Snape ignored the audience's reactions and continued speaking in his emotionless voice. So, the first spell I recommend you master is the Screaming Curse or the Alarm Curse. Many dark wizards are like rats in the sewers. The slightest noise can scare them away. Next, you need to master the Armor Charm. Remember to carry your protective school badge with you. After all, many dark wizards prefer sneak attacks. With it, you will have the opportunity to counterattack or escape. Finally, Snape paused, his voice no longer calm but much more serious. If it is unavoidable, then do not hesitate, strike first and seize the opportunity. Someone once told me a famous saying. Snape glanced vaguely in Sebastian's direction, the first to strike is the strongest, the last to strike will suffer. Remember one thing, it is better to suffer in Azkaban than to have your loved ones shed tears at your grave. Snape talked freely, sharing his experiences bit by bit. Professor McGonagall wanted to interrupt Snape's speech several times. She always felt that there were some things that the young wizards should not be exposed to now. She hesitated for a long time, and every time she spoke, she thought of the layout of the corridor on the 4th floor of Hogwarts. Never mind. The wizarding world began to become unstable again. It wouldn't be a bad idea to let the little ones know this in advance. Professor Snape, a Slytherin student asked boldly, what suggestions do you have for taking the initiative? Suggestions. Snape smiled. Use your most skilled attack spell to launch a saturation attack in an instant, leaving the enemy no chance to breathe. Next, I will ask Professor Swan to help demonstrate the fast attack flow for everyone. Young wizards in the lower grades, please note that when you have mastered fewer spells, this will be the most suitable attack method for you. Fast break flow? Harry's eyes lit up. He was familiar with this. He was currently using the fast attack style. He stared at the two professors on the stage intently. He wanted to see how far his level was from theirs. Snape and Sebastian faced off on the ring, their eyes as sharp as hawks. 3-2-1, start. At the command, they waved their wands almost at the same time, and saturated spells poured out like a rainstorm. Snape waved his wand and a powerful spell cut through the air. Sebastian deflected the spell and counterattacked instantly. The flickering magical light illuminated the entire auditorium. They were nimble on their feet, using the simplest moves to dodge each other's attacks. The two of them exchanged spells back and forth, crisscrossing in the air and emitting dazzling light. The young wizards stared at the arena intently, marveling at this visual feast. The speed of the spell was so fast that they dared not even blink, for fear of missing any wonderful moment. Unlike the elegance of Professor McGonagall and Professor Flitwick, these two professors give people only one feeling, violence. The direct attacks were both violent and precise, and every collision shook their hearts. Spells flew across the arena as two powerful wizards clashed in a fast yet powerful manner, demonstrating the ultimate charm of magic duels. As the duel progressed, the duel between Snape and Sebastian became more and more intense, and the magical light on the ring became more and more dazzling. Harry was becoming more and more excited and nervous. In his eyes, the fight between the two professors was too intense and he didn't want to see any of them get hurt. Suddenly, Snape and Sebastian stopped at the same time, the light on the ring gradually dissipated, and calm returned. There was silence in the auditorium, followed by thunderous applause and cheers. "That's cool, Professor. That's really cool. Merlin's stockings. Who on earth said you can't hit a professor in Muggle studies? Professor Snape is so powerful. No wonder he always wanted to be the professor of defense against the dark arts. Don't stop. The winner hasn't been decided yet." For a moment, the auditorium was in chaos, with all kinds of shouts coming out one after another. Fred was extremely excited and kept emphasizing to George that this was not the strongest strength of the two professors. Harry clapped his hands until they turned red, staring intently at the two professors on the stage. "See, Ronald? Your eyes can't keep up with the speed of the spell. This is the real fast break style. This is the path Professor Swan suggested to me. It's not just about speed, Hermione shouted to the two students, the professors use the same spell much more powerfully, so we also need to work on the power of the spell. Sebastian stood on the stage and took a lot of effort to calm the little wizards down. Are you already impatient to show off your skills? Don't worry. Even the best duelists started out by learning spells. Next, we will begin tonight's theme, the practice of the petrification spell. Pay attention to the movements of my wand, he said after seeing the young wizards imitating him, and remember the spell petrify all. Sebastian waved his wand and a thick cushion appeared behind each little wizard. Two little wizards form a team and practice in groups. Start. Chapter 90. At the command, the young wizards dispersed and started practicing with their companions. Harry was embarrassed to find that he was left behind and no one was willing to team up with him. Sorry buddy, Ronald said apologetically, you're just too strong, and I don't want to get into trouble. Harry, Hermione said, also a little embarrassed, seriously, would you consider teaming up with a second or third year student? Team up with senior classmates? Harry was a little hesitant. He looked around and found that everyone had basically formed a team. He originally wanted to find Neville, but found that he had already teamed up with Seamus. Bang! Harry's eyes flashed and he was startled. He looked closely and found that Seamus's spell had exploded again. His entire face turned black and his hair turned into an afro. The little wizards around were also shocked. After they figured out what was going on, they all burst into laughter. Sebastian came over when he heard the noise, and after confirming that Seamus was fine, he let them continue practicing. Then he found Harry who was alone. After finding out what happened, Sebastian looked around and found Malfoy who was also alone in Slytherin. What a coincidence! Just put these two together. In the first grade, the abilities of these two little guys are the closest. Sebastian walked over to Malfoy and whispered something in his ear. After getting Malfoy's consent, Sebastian brought him to Harry's side and formed the two into a team. As soon as Sebastian left, Malfoy smiled crookedly, with a provocative gleam in his eyes. Potter, others may be afraid of you, but I am not. I was careless yesterday, but I will not give you any chance today. Come on. In the auditorium, the young wizards were working in pairs, conducting duel training with great enthusiasm. Fred and George, the twins who usually love to play tricks, were not as naughty as before. They stood opposite each other, practicing spells attentively, and every action was full of rigor and seriousness. Percy was beside Penelope, carefully adjusting her posture, his expression focused and gentle, as if he was admiring a fine work of art. Marcus lay stiffly on the mat, his eyes fixed on the ceiling, patiently waiting for his companions to come and help him remove the curse. As time went on, the hall became more and more crowded and chaotic, and from time to time little wizards were accidentally injured by spells cast by other groups. Every corner was crowded with people, spells flying everywhere flashed dazzling lights, and the shouts of students and the sound of spells colliding mixed together, making Sebastian a little overwhelmed. Sebastian also noticed that several groups of students had to practice in a small area due to lack of space. Seeing this scene, Sebastian frowned. This won't work, the auditorium is still too small. We have to think of a better way. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and an idea came to his mind. Why not build a dedicated dueling arena? A duel arena with complete facilities and spacious space. This will not only solve the problems of crowding and chaos, but also provide better training conditions for young wizards. Young wizards can come to this venue to practice spells at any time. If necessary, duels can also be held inside. Sebastian immediately took action and called the professors together to explain his ideas to them in detail. Great, Sebastian, Professor Flitwick praised the idea. This way, the young wizards will have a professional venue to practice spells. Professor McGonagall looked at Sebastian appreciatively. We can choose the venue in the open space next to the Quidditch pitch. There is plenty of space there. Well, you guys just watch here first. Professor McGonagall turned and walked out of the hall. I'll go find Dumbledore now and settle the matter. Great, very great. After seeing Sebastian's gaze, Lockhart smiled flatteringly. I will donate 10,000 gold galleons in my personal name. Snape looked at Sebastian and said coldly, if you need any help, feel free to ask. Professor McGonagall acted very quickly and returned to the hall in a short while. She handed a small cloth bag to Sebastian and spoke to him kindly. Dumbledore said he believes in you and told you to go for it. Night, Swan Manor. Sebastian sat on the sofa, staring quietly at the red gem on the table, looking thoughtful. At this time, the bathroom door opened slightly, and Mia walked out in pajamas with wet hair. She raised her wand and waved it gently, and her hair instantly became dry and smooth, exuding a faint fragrance. Mia sat next to Sebastian and her eyes were quickly drawn to the gems on the table. "Sebastian, what kind of stone is this? It's so beautiful," she couldn't help but ask. Sebastian smiled and gently pulled her in, letting her lean against his shoulder. "It's the philosopher's stone, dear," he whispered, a hint of mystery in his voice. Mia's eyes widened, her face full of shock. "The philosopher's stone? The one belonging to Nicholas Flamel? Didn't you say it was in Dumbledore's hands? Dumbledore actually trusted you enough to let you take it out of Hogwarts?" Sebastian nodded, looking at the philosopher's stone on the table, his mind racing. After receiving the cloth bag from Professor McGonagall, he simply put it in his traceless stretch bag and continued to instruct his students. To be honest, he never expected that there was a philosopher's stone in the bag. Why is old Deng suddenly so generous? The philosopher's stone, which he was not even allowed to look at before, is now handed directly into his hands. "I thought I would have to pay for the construction of the duel arena myself." Sebastian was in a daze, he couldn't make out what Dumbledore was thinking. "You know, this stone contains infinite temptations, and anyone who gets it may fall into endless greed. Is this trust? Or a test? If it's just a test, the cost is a bit high." Sebastian hesitated for only a moment before becoming full of passion. "Be it trust or testing, since Dumbledore has handed the philosopher's stone to me, I cannot do anything shameful. Haha, a mere piece of gold, how can it disturb my spiritual heart? I want to show Dumbledore what a real Slytherin is like. This magic stone will never be abused." Thinking of this, Sebastian gently stroked Mia's hair, with a firm look in his eyes, and slowly told Mia his thoughts. Mia raised her head, her eyes fixed on Sebastian's face. There was a gleam of admiration in her eyes, this man was her hero. As if sensing the love in Mia's eyes, Sebastian picked her up and walked towards the bedroom. The philosopher's stone lay quietly on the table, like an inconspicuous stone. Chapter 91. It only took Sebastian one day to prepare all the materials. He returned to Hogwarts early on Sunday morning and returned the philosopher's stone to Dumbledore. After breakfast, the students were surprised to find that the deans of the 4 colleges appeared in front of the hall in an orderly manner, and then walked towards the Quidditch field with their Muggle Studies professors. What's going on? There was no Quidditch match going on now, so why were the professors heading in that direction together? Out of curiosity, everyone followed the professors to find out what was going on. There is a large open space between the Quidditch pitch and the school castle. After discussion among the professors, the duel venue was chosen here. As soon as the group arrived here, Sebastian opened his seamless stretch bag. A wide variety of building materials flew out from inside, and soon the ground was filled with various bricks, wood, and steel beams. "Oh my god, what is this for? This looks like they are going to build a house. Guess what they are going to build here? It could be an animal pen. After all, the herbal greenhouse has been expanded so much, it makes sense to keep some magical animals here. Wouldn't that add a lot of part-time jobs? That's great. I happen to be good at protecting magical creatures." The little wizards were talking about it, and everyone was curious about what the professors were going to build here. Fred and George saw the crowds of people and immediately realized that this was a great business opportunity. They smiled at each other, understood each other, and quickly squeezed to the front of the crowd to act as the banker and let everyone start betting. Amid the discussions of the young wizards, Sebastian stretched out his wand and waved it gently. The ground slowly sank down, forming a solid foundation. Then, the mountains of materials seemed to be lifted up by invisible hands and floated into the air. As Sebastian waved his wand, the building materials performed their respective tasks precisely and gracefully, just like band members following their conduct. Stone bricks began to be piled up into towering walls, wood was interwoven into complex structures, and steel beams flew in the air and were finally firmly fixed to the walls. Gradually, the windows and door frames took shape, and the building, which covered an area larger than a Quidditch pitch, became complete. Its appearance is simple and elegant, full of medieval style, and blends perfectly with the overall architectural style of Hogwarts. This is simply a miracle. Pinch me now. I always suspect that I am still asleep and am hallucinating. If Professor Swan were a contractor, he would definitely earn $1 million a year. Listening to the discussions of the young wizards, Sebastian looked at the duel arena in front of him with satisfaction. Good. From then on, the young wizards finally had a professional place to practice spells. After all, learning the spell is the first step, and practicing the spell is the second step. Furthermore, even if one has mastered a single spell, how to use it in a duel is another matter. To put it bluntly, learning a spell and using this spell in combat are two completely different things. Just like in Muggle games, everyone uses the same characters and the same skills, but some people can become kings while others can only stay in bronze. Sebastian once again took out a large number of alchemical props and placed them on the ground. First, he took out a huge stone and a bulletin board and placed them on both sides of the gate of the duel arena. "Everyone, pay attention," Sebastian said, pointing at the boulder. "This boulder is an alchemical item. You can use it to test your magic power. The instructions are on the back of it." He then pointed to the notice board and said, "The notice board contains a detailed introduction to this building, as well as the requirements for the newly added work-study positions. Please read it for yourself." Then he turned to the professors and invited them with a smile, "Excuse me, professors, please help with the decoration. Professor Sprout, please plant some evergreen magical plants around the venue to make it more beautiful." As soon as the professors entered the venue, the little wizards surrounded them. Harry squeezed in the crowd, struggling to read the words on the notice board, trying to make sense of all the information. "The dueling hall will be open all day starting tomorrow. Every little wizard is welcome to come and practice spells and duels." Harry suddenly realized that this was the venue specially prepared by the professors for everyone to practice spells and duels. He looked up at the magnificent duel hall and an extremely happy smile appeared on his face. Ever since he came to Hogwarts, he had always disliked the inconvenience of practicing spells here. There aren't even some basic alchemy dolls. Because of this, he was depressed for a long time. Harry touched the picture hidden on his chest. "That's great, Mom doesn't have to worry about my studies anymore. Dueling club, held here every Friday night at 8 p.m. Hermione looked at the words with some excitement. "Great, next Friday Professor Flitwick will be the speaker, and the topic is the combination of multiple spells. Ronald, look, there are new work-study positions. Don't you want to apply for one? Take a look at the job requirements." Ronald was a little excited. He was still using Charlie's old wand, so he really wanted to apply for the job of student worker at the school. Unfortunately, he failed in both the herbology and potions positions. In his eyes, this new position was worth as much as glittering gold galleons, and he really wanted to make progress. Part-time job recruitment, Ronald read carefully, recruiting a number of duel hosts, responsible for refereeing, safety and rule explanation during daily arena competitions. Registration is open only to students in grades 6 to 7. We are recruiting several venue order maintainers, who will be responsible for ensuring order during daily training and maintaining the equipment and facilities in the venue. This position is open to all students in the school. You can apply for the second position, Ronald. Hermione's voice sounded again. Ronald nodded repeatedly and said, "Great. When it's my turn to maintain order, I can go and cause trouble for Malfoy so that he can't concentrate on training." "Ronald." Hermione raised her voice, "This is irresponsible, you must not do this." Ronald rolled his eyes speechlessly at Hermione's words. "Here we go again. This girl is so annoying. Not only does he like to teach, he also loves to preach." Speechless. The little wizards in front of the bulletin board were chattering about the new announcement. At the same time, bursts of exclamations continued to come from the boulder, attracting everyone's attention like a wave. Harry was attracted by the movement at the boulder, and turned to Ronald and Hermione and said, "Let's go check out the boulder over there." The three of them walked towards the boulder and found that there were even more people there than at the billboard. They were surrounded in 3 layers, and exclamations could be heard from the innermost layer from time to time. It seemed particularly mysterious and attractive. From everyone's discussion, Harry and the other 2 knew the purpose of the huge stone. The young wizards can attack the stone with their most powerful spells. After the spell is cast, a value will be displayed under the boulder, along with the magic rating of the little wizard. As soon as this new thing appeared, everyone wanted to see how strong they were. Finally it was Harry's turn. He took a deep breath, raised his wand and aimed it at the boulder. In an instant, a dazzling red light hit it. Wizard's Apprentice, Stage 2. Chapter 92. Time flies, and Halloween is here in the blink of an eye. The Hogwarts castle looks particularly magnificent in the autumn sunset, and the falling leaves add a golden atmosphere to the campus. The corridors and auditoriums were filled with colorful decorations, and huge pumpkin lanterns were carefully carved into various strange faces, emitting a warm orange glow. Sebastian brought a lot of candies. He waved his magic wand and the candies instantly turned into cute Q-version bats, flying happily in the air. They have big eyes with a slightly naughty look, and their wings are short and round, which look like two small leaves when flapping. The little wizards were so happy to see the little bats that they screamed and chased them. They took out their magic wands and aimed at the little bats in the sky. In an instant, bright magic spells flew into the sky, knocking the little bats to the ground and turning them into delicious candies. Fred and George were unhappy with the efficiency of a single spell in catching candy, and they suddenly had an idea and exchanged a sly look with each other. Then, they both waved their wands at the same time, transforming their robes into two huge insect nets, each with a retractable pole attached to the bottom. All of a sudden, the two of them became much more efficient at catching candies, leaving the surrounding little wizards stunned and envious. Everyone quickly followed suit, waving strange-shaped net bags, which quickly reduced the number of small bats in the sky. For a moment, laughter, shouts, and the sound of bat wings flapping intertwined, making the entire auditorium lively and bustling. After Dumbledore announced the start of the dinner, delicious dishes instantly filled the tables of various colleges. Golden roast turkey, fragrant roast pumpkin, caramelized roast potatoes, sweet apple pie, colorful candies, creamy chocolate cake, soft pudding, there is a wide variety of food and everything you can think of. Harry looked around and saw no sign of Hermione, so he asked Ronald. "Ronald, have you seen Hermione? She disappeared after Charms class today." Ronald held a chicken leg in each hand and nibbled on it, taking a bite from the left and the right. His mouth was stuffed full, and after hearing Harry's question, he replied incoherently. "No. I haven't seen him. Maybe he's in the library." Ronald swallowed all the food in his mouth with an effort, then picked up the pumpkin juice and took a big sip. "Who cares? It's better that she doesn't come. I've disliked her for a long time. She's always meddling in everything. I'm so annoyed by her. Every time I borrow her homework, she always refuses and says she has to do her own homework. I don't copy her homework, I just borrow her ideas. She was even more excessive in today's Charms class, constantly saying that my pronunciation and gestures were incorrect, and that this was not right and that was not right. Really? She's just an assistant teacher of Transfiguration. Why does she care so much?" Ronald seemed to have a lot of resentment towards Hermione, and he started talking and complaining non-stop. Neville at the side couldn't stand it anymore, so he interrupted. "Don't say anything, Ronald. Parvati said that Hermione was very sad and is still crying in the ladies' room." Ronald looked a little uneasy when he heard Neville's words. "So fragile? I just said that she has no friends, why is she crying until now? What should I do now? Should I go and apologize?" For a moment, Harry and Ronald looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Harry opened his mouth and was about to say something when the door to the Great Hall was pushed open heavily. Harry turned his head and saw Professor Quirrell running in a panic, shouting as he ran. "Troll, in the basement!" Before he could finish his words, he fell to the ground and fainted. The sudden change caused great panic in the auditorium. Seeing this scene, Sebastian, who was well prepared, cast an amplification spell on himself. "Calm down." The loud sound drowned out the students' screams and attracted their attention. "Don't panic, Headmaster Dumbledore is here. This is the safest place. Go back to your seats and continue eating." After that, he turned to look at Dumbledore and said, "Headmaster, you stay here to protect the students. The dinner has just started and the students haven't eaten yet." "It's just a small troll." Sebastian released his magical perception and found that the troll had not left the basement and was still a very long distance away from Hermione, who was in the bathroom. "I already know where it is, let's go take care of it." As for Professor Quirrell, who fainted, Sebastian glanced at Quirrell, who was pretending to be unconscious, and a smirk appeared on the corner of his mouth. "I'll put you right under Dumbledore's nose and see what kind of evil you can do." He waved his wand and conjured up a thick cushion, placed it in front of the professor's chair, and then used a levitation spell to move Quirrell onto the cushion. "The ground is quite cold. Let Professor Quirrell sleep on the mat for a while." "Professor Swan," Harry hurriedly brought Ronald to the professor's seat. "Hermione didn't come to the dinner. She doesn't know about the troll. We're worried she might be in danger." Can you take us to find her? Hearing this, Professor McGonagall was about to stop him when he heard Dumbledore speak. Their willingness to protect their friendship is very precious. In that case, let's take both of them with us. Dumbledore gave Sebastian a meaningful look. I believe Professor Swan can keep the students safe. Seeing the look in Dumbledore's eyes, Sebastian nodded. Got it. This is meant to train Harry. It was absolutely clear what was planned for Harry. Don't worry. Sebastian casually turned on the huge magic TV on the wall, took out a special magic camera and spoke to the students. XXXX level biological giant monster, the focus of the defense against the dark arts class. It's not common to see a living giant monster. Next, I will show you a living giant monster from a first-person perspective. You can watch the live broadcast while eating. After saying that, he took Harry and Ronald towards the bathroom on the first floor. The bathroom on the first floor was located at a T-shaped intersection. As soon as they walked into the corridor opposite the bathroom, they smelled a foul odor. Sebastian immediately cast a transparent bubble head spell on each of the three people, and then explained to the magic camera. The appearance of giant monsters is often accompanied by a strong stench. This stench can easily make people unable to open their eyes. The bubble head charm can help us isolate the polluted air around us at this time. As soon as he finished speaking, Harry and Ronald felt the ground shaking, as if a giant was walking towards them not far away. They looked at each other in horror, their hearts seeming to rise to their throats. At this moment, a huge figure appeared at the door of the bathroom. It was as tall as a floor, and its skin was rough and grey, as if covered with a thick layer of rock. Its arms were as thick as 2 stone pillars, and it held a huge wooden stick in its hands. Its head was very small compared to its body, looking very disproportionate. Its eyes were deep in the dark sockets, flashing a dull light. Harry and Ronald held their breath and stood stiffly in place, as if they were unable to move due to the troll's momentum. On the way here, they had learned that Hermione was in the bathroom in front of them, and they were extremely anxious when they saw that the troll was planning to enter the bathroom. Harry gripped his wand tightly, looked up at Sebastian, and said anxiously, "Hurry up, Professor." Sebastian raised his wand and cast a strong shield charm on Harry, then smiled slightly. "Harry, I've got your shield ready. Next, it's your turn. Go ahead." Chapter 93. There was an uproar in the auditorium at this moment. After hearing what Sebastian said, the little wizards all reacted in a similar way. They opened their mouths wide and didn't even bother to eat. What the hell? Is Professor Swan crazy? Letting Potter fight the troll alone? Pinch me off, I feel like I'm hallucinating. This is worse than asking Potter to catch a spell with his bare hands. Malfoy sat in his seat, worried about Potter's safety, but also a little worried about what would happen if Potter won. Snape stared coldly at the magic TV, his back teeth almost broken, and he kept cursing Sebastian in his heart. This stinky swan. What the hell is wrong with him, letting Harry fight a troll? Just wait, if Harry gets any skin broken, I'll definitely replace your drink with Verita serum. For a moment, Harry doubted his ears. Who? I? One-on-one fight with the giant monster? Harry compared the height difference between himself and the troll, and found to his despair that he was just above the troll's knees. The professor is asking himself to butt his head against the troll's knee. Aren't Ronald and I cheerleaders? Harry swallowed hard and turned to look at Ronald, who was staring at Sebastian in surprise, his jaw almost dropping to the ground. Harry looked at Sebastian with doubt, but after getting a positive answer, he gave up all his fantasies. He turned his head and found that the troll had opened the bathroom door. In an instant, Harry's courage returned to him. He took a deep breath and shouted at the troll. "Look here, you ugly BD. I'll beat you to death." Then he raised his wand, and a red spell shot out and hit the troll. The troll stopped opening the door, as if it felt something touching it. It scratched its head, looked around in confusion, and found the little guy who was shouting. In an instant, it felt that it was provoked, so it roared and rushed towards Harry with the stick in hand. At the same time, Sebastian cast his Patronus and used it to send a message to Hermione in the bathroom. "Ms. Granger, there is a giant monster outside the door. It is very dangerous, so hide inside and don't make any noise or come out. Your friends Harry and Ronald are here to rescue you. Please wait patiently inside." Looking at the troll rushing towards him, Harry was not particularly panicked, he was thinking very clearly. There is no hope of defeating the giant by just fighting head-on. So you can only outsmart them, not defeat them with force. After thinking this through, Harry did not rush forward recklessly, but stepped back cautiously and moved closer to Sebastian. He came up with a brilliant idea, which was to taunt and then hide directly behind Sebastian, letting Sebastian fight the troll. Hee, this is wisdom. Just as Harry was about to act, he was surprised to find that Sebastian had already retreated 5 meters away with Ronald, as if he had seen through his plan. There is no way, plan A failed, so I have to keep fighting. Harry gritted his teeth and fired spells at the troll with all his strength, but unfortunately, these spells had no effect at all on the troll. He could only watch the troll come to him, then raise the wooden stick and smash it down hard. Stroke. Harry looked at the wooden stick in the troll's hand in shock. He didn't understand why the troll missed. Before he could react, he saw the troll attacking him again. Continuous stroke. Sebastian held his wand and gently swung it at the stick in the troll's hand. Under his precise control, each attack of the troll just missed Harry, creating a dangerous situation. Sebastian continued to explain to the magic camera, as you can see, Mr. Potter's attack had no effect on the troll. That's because the giant monster's magic resistance is very high. So if you encounter a giant monster in the wild, don't think about fighting it head-on. That would be a very unwise move. The best way to deal with it is to apparate and leave. If that's not possible, you can use transfiguration to conjure a large animal to attract its attention, and then leave quickly. Everyone remember, the troll has low intelligence. We can use this to our advantage against it. Before he finished speaking, the bathroom door opened and Hermione's head carefully poked out from the door. After hearing the professor's message, she was terrified. She had read in books how cruel the trolls were. She had intended to hide in the bathroom until the professor had subdued the troll. But the sounds of fighting and Harry's roar coming from outside the bathroom continued to torment Hermione. Didn't the professor come along? Why was Harry dueling the troll? After thinking that Harry and Ronald were here to save her, she finally made up her mind to come out and fight with Harry. Unexpectedly, as soon as Hermione opened the door, she saw Harry narrowly escaping a troll's attack. She couldn't bear it any longer, so she screamed and attacked the troll. Seeing how brave Hermione was, Ronald was unwilling to be outdone by her, so he roared and rushed towards the troll. Harry, I'll help you too. Seeing the three of them working together, Sebastian smiled with satisfaction. The purpose of the exercise has been achieved, and it's almost time to start cleaning up the mess. Just as Sebastian was about to attack, he heard Hermione yell to the other two, "Our attacks are useless. We have to think of something else." Hearing this, Sebastian stopped. He wanted to see if the three little guys could still create a miracle. Anyway, with him watching them, the three of them would not encounter any danger. You say? Ronald was extremely anxious and quickly replied loudly after hearing Hermione's words. He originally wanted to attack the troll's stick directly, but found that the stick was held tightly by the troll, and his levitation spell was useless on it. Now that he heard Hermione had an idea, he was naturally willing to cooperate. We can lure the troll to that special place. Hermione's voice was a little sharp, and let the troll fight the other big guy. Great idea. Harry's eyes lit up and he understood what Hermione meant. She wanted to lead the troll to the three-headed dog. Let's do it. He bent down and squeezed under the troll, then ran desperately towards the stairs. Ugly. Come after me. Thanks to the fact that Harry had been fighting the troll for the longest time, the troll's hatred towards him was very stable. After seeing Harry running away, the troll was stunned for a moment, then roared and chased after him. Hermione and Ronald were worried about Harry's safety, and after looking at each other, they quickly followed. To be honest, Sebastian was very surprised by Hermione's idea. It was the first time he heard of this idea in his 2 lifetimes. Fresh. As expected of Hermione, her new brain is really useful. By the way, Sebastian really wants to see who is more powerful, the troll or the three-headed dog. However, this is a live broadcast, and Dumbledore will definitely not agree to expose the three-headed dog. Sure enough, before he could take a step forward, a portrait whispered in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "Professor Swan, the principal asked me to tell you that it's time to end." I knew this would be the result. Sebastian came to the stairs, stretched out his wand and pointed it at the troll's feet. The next moment, the troll's feet stepped on an ice cube. It suddenly lost its balance, broke through the handrail of the stairs and fell down. Bang! After a loud bang, the troll fell heavily to the ground and fainted. Harry, Ronald, and Hermione looked at each other. They had never expected this result. They were ecstatic, hugged each other, laughed and jumped. We defeated the troll. Chapter 94. After defeating the troll, Harry and his two companions enjoyed a good time in the castle. Wherever they went, people gave them a thumbs up and praised them with a well done. Ronald walked with his head held high and chest out every day, and he never tired of describing his heroic performance over and over again. Hermione felt that this kind of praise made her life a little chaotic, and she was even disturbed in the library. In order to avoid those enthusiastic classmates, she simply took her book and hid behind the bed curtains to study. Harry felt a little embarrassed by everyone's praise, especially when those little wizards looked at him with admiring eyes. He always felt a little uncomfortable. After calming down, Harry began to reflect on the scene of defeating the troll, and always felt that things were not as simple as they seemed. Especially the giant monster's stick-out technique, which makes people suspicious no matter how they think about it. Thinking of Sebastian who was present, he guessed that Sebastian was secretly protecting the three of them, otherwise how come no one was hurt? The only thing that made Harry feel genuinely happy was that after fighting the troll, he, Ronald and Hermione became good friends who could talk about anything. Soon, Harry didn't have time to think about it. Because after entering November, the Quidditch competitions between the various colleges began. It is worth mentioning that after nearly a year of discussion, the rules of Quidditch games have finally changed. The rule changes are minor, at least most team members are not affected, except for the Seeker, which has undergone an epic nerf. Now, the Seeker only gets 50 points for catching the snitch, instead of 150 points. The focus of Quidditch games has shifted from Seekers to Chasers and Beaters, so today's Quidditch games now focus more on the overall strength of the team. Angelina Johnson, the captain of the Gryffindor team, was so anxious about the change in the competition system that she was almost going bald. Fred and George were picked for the school team this term, so the Gryffindor house team is even weaker. Angelina's anxiety was relieved a little thanks to Professor McGonagall, who noticed Harry's outstanding performance in the first Quidditch class and arranged him to join the Gryffindor team as a Seeker. Angelina values this Seeker very much and keeps increasing Harry's training so that Harry can quickly catch the golden snitch and win the game. On Saturday morning, Harry looked at the breakfast in front of him and was so nervous that he couldn't eat a single bite. "Harry," Hermione advised with concern, "you must eat something, or you will pass out from hunger when you get to heaven." "Yeah, Harry," Ronald agreed, "eat your fill even if the sky falls. Besides, Hermione said that she saw your father's name in the Hogwarts Quidditch records. He was also a Seeker. You have Seeker blood in your veins. You'll be great at it." Hearing his friend's comfort, Harry sighed, "I also read the record. But my father never won a house cup. I think that speaks volumes." Ronald. Seeing Harry lower his head, Hermione quickly comforted him, "Don't think too much, Harry, you will definitely win." In fact, Harry lowered his head not because he was nervous, but because Ronald's words reminded him of his father. Harry really wanted to know what kind of person his father was, but unfortunately, every time his father was mentioned, the people around him had a secretive expression. He asked Hagrid, but Hagrid only said that his father was a good man and a war hero. He didn't understand why Aunt Mia and Sebastian were only willing to tell him every little bit about their mother. Once his father is mentioned, he would change the subject as if he had something to hide. Sebastian sat in the spectator stands at the Quidditch pitch, watching the game in the sky with great interest. Looking at Harry flying smoothly, Sebastian sighed slightly. Harry flies very well and it looks like he will definitely be selected for the school team next year. But this is what Sebastian was worried about. He always felt that letting Harry join the school team would be a devastating blow to the school team. The scenes in the original book kept appearing in his mind. Harry always missed the Quidditch finals due to various troubles. Sebastian took a deep breath, trying to stop thinking about things that hadn't happened. He focused his attention on the game at hand. Suddenly, Harry's broom began to shake violently, so violently that it almost knocked him off the broom. Hermione noticed this immediately and she shouted nervously, "Look, Harry's broomstick seems to be going crazy." Hearing Hermione's cry, Hagrid immediately raised his telescope and looked up at the sky. In order to watch Harry's first game, he had made sufficient preparations. "Merlin." Hagrid's voice trembled. This is somewhat like the effect of dark magic, because only dark magic can interfere with a broomstick. How is it possible? With so many professors watching, who would be so brave? Black magic? Hermione was so shocked by Hagrid's words that she didn't care about anything else and grabbed the telescope to look around. This is impossible. Isn't Harry his favorite student? Hermione exclaimed, attracting Ronald's attention. Hurry up and tell me. What happened? Ronald was extremely anxious. He was eager to know what Hermione had discovered. Professor Snape is chanting a spell. Hermione lowered her voice. She could hardly believe her eyes. After all, Harry was the assistant teacher of potions and Professor Snape liked him the most. But after repeated confirmation, she found that Snape was indeed chanting spells. I knew it. Ronald shouted angrily, these damn Slytherins are all up to no good. What should we do now? Should we go find Professor McGonagall? Wait. Hermione was surprised to find that there was a commotion in the stands opposite, and everyone looked at Professor Quirrell who had fallen to the ground. Hermione looked up suddenly and found that Harry's broom had indeed stopped shaking. She breathed a sigh of relief and said, thank God, Harry is okay. However, a trace of doubt arose in Hermione's mind. Is that really Professor Snape? Why did Professor Quirrell fall to the ground? The moment Harry's broom began to shake, Sebastian was staring at the back of Quirrell's head. He deliberately sat behind Quirrell today just for this moment. He really wanted to slap Quirrell on the back of the head. Isn't this equivalent to slapping Voldemort in the face? How cool would that be? But thinking of the future plan, Sebastian held back. A little lack of patience will ruin great plans. So he stretched out his right hand and slapped Quirrell on the shoulder. Merlin's pants. Quirrell gave an exaggerated cry, as if frightened to the point of collapse, and fell to the ground. The students and professors around him cast confused looks at him, and Sebastian stood up and helped Quirrell up. After this little episode, Professor Quirrell became unusually quiet. The game continued and the surrounding noise gradually returned to normal, as if the farce just now was just a short dream. After the game, Sebastian carried Quirrell off the Quidditch pitch. Quirrell struggled several times but failed to break free from Sebastian's arms. The two walked all the way to Quirrell's office, and Sebastian let him go. That's enough, Professor Swan. No need to take me to the office. I said I am fine. Yet. Sebastian then cast a head bubble charm on himself and smiled meaningfully at Quirrell. Why do I feel like you still have questions? Professor Quirrell. Chapter 95. Really? How come I didn't know? Quirrell's smile was forced, and he wondered if Sebastian had noticed something. Could it be that the adult was discovered? The thought made Quirrell feel a wave of fear, as if a cold hand had gripped his heart tightly. He took a breath calmly, trying to calm his inner tension. Quirrell felt it silently. The adult on the back of his head had fallen into complete silence, as if all his senses had been closed. He rolled his eyes slightly and secretly observed Sebastian, and found that Sebastian opposite him looked normal and did not show any signs of facing a great enemy. It seems that it may have nothing to do with that adult. Maybe I was overthinking it. Don't panic at this time. Thinking of this, Quirrell relaxed his guard a little. Looking at Quirrell who was stubborn, Sebastian smiled and said teasingly. Haven't you always wanted to steal something from the deep corridor on the 4th floor, Professor Quirrell? As soon as these words came out, it was like a bolt of lightning, striking Quirrell's heart. The corners of his eyes twitched slightly, and a hint of imperceptible panic appeared on his seemingly calm face. He tried hard to control his expression and stay calm, but there was a storm in his heart. How did Sebastian find himself wanting to steal? What else does he know? Quirrell's heart, which had just relaxed, suddenly rose to his throat again. He was worried that the secret of his being possessed by Voldemort had been discovered. He tried hard to look innocent and spoke calmly. I don't understand why what you're saying. Sebastian smiled slightly, with a sharp light flashing in his eyes. Then tell me, your office is on the 3rd floor, why do I often see you hanging around on the 4th floor? As a professor of defense against the dark arts, you would be frightened by a giant monster. This is too unreasonable. And, as far as I know, you designed a level yourself, and it contains a giant monster. How do you explain this? Sebastian pressed on, his tone increasingly questioning. Quirrell's palms began to sweat, and he felt an invisible pressure on his chest that made it hard for him to breathe. He forced a smile. That's because you were the one who secretly let the giant monster in at the Halloween party. The purpose was to cause panic and then attack from the east. Sebastian didn't give him a chance to explain. His voice suddenly became more pressing and questioning. Am I right, Professor Quirrell. Quirrell's expression changed completely, his eyes began to dodge, he could no longer remain calm, the fear and anxiety in his heart had consumed him. Quirrell said in a panic, "Nonsense! You are slandering me. I have no intention to steal the Philosopher's Stone." As soon as the words came out of his mouth, Quirrell was stunned. Broken. So panicked. It's bald. The other party did not say that the Philosopher's Stone was hidden deep inside the 4th floor. And Dumbledore didn't say exactly what was hidden there. Before he could regret it, Quirrell saw Sebastian looking at him with contempt. "Professor Quirrell, did I just mention the Philosopher's Stone?" Then, Sebastian changed the subject and showed off his acting skills. "Don't be nervous, Professor Quirrell, we are actually the same kind of people. A fellow traveler? What's the meaning?" Quirrell was filled with curiosity and wanted to know what Sebastian meant. Sebastian smiled and said mysteriously, "Actually, you're not the only one who wants to steal the Philosopher's Stone. I have the same idea. We are natural allies. So that's how it is. Here comes another one who wants to steal the Philosopher's Stone. This guy looks sanctimonious, but it turns out he is a hypocrite." Quirrell, who had relaxed a little, pretended to be surprised and said, You want to steal the Philosopher's Stone? Aren't you afraid that I'll tell the headmaster about this?" Sebastian mentally rolled his eyes. The acting is quite similar. If I didn't know the plot, I would have been fooled by you. He pointed his hand toward the door and said slowly, "Please, Professor Quirrell, you can expose me now. Let's see whether the principal believes you or me." Sebastian paused and said regretfully, "I came here with sincerity. If you insist on not cooperating, then we will be competitors. Let's try our best and see who has the better skills." Sebastian paused, observing Quirrell's reaction, and then added, "By the way, if I can't get the Philosopher's Stone, I'll keep an eye on you and make sure you can't get it either. Please consider my suggestion." As soon as Sebastian finished speaking, the office fell into silence. Quirrell's expression kept changing, as if he was in a dilemma. Looking at the troubled Quirrell, Sebastian did not urge him at all, but just looked at him quietly without saying a word. In fact, Sebastian came to Quirrell today not just to provoke him, but to plant a seed for saving him in the future. This was not a whim, but a well-considered decision. He wanted to set an example in the wizarding world, an example that in addition to the savior, ordinary people could also escape from Voldemort. This would not only break Voldemort's image of invincibility once again, but would also help Harry share the firepower. In addition, if Quirrell survived, he could confirm with his own mouth that Voldemort regarded his followers as worthless and that there was no future in following him. In short, if Quirrell can be saved, there will definitely be many benefits. However, Sebastian knew very well that Quirrell was now on high alert and vigilant to any disturbance in Hogwarts. Therefore, he chose to disguise himself as someone who also wanted to steal the Philosopher's Stone and perform a trick. As long as Sebastian can become Quirrell's ally and gain his trust, he will be able to control the overall situation more clearly. Help Quirrell before he sucks the unicorn's blood and give him hope so that he won't fall completely. In this way, the chance of saving Quirrell can be increased to more than 50%. Of course, Sebastian didn't expect Quirrell to believe him right away. Seeing Quirrell lost in thought, Sebastian decided to play hard to get. He turned around and walked slowly towards the office door. He knew that Quirrell would not let him leave like this, even if he wanted to, the people behind him would not want to. Sure enough, when Sebastian was about to open the door, Quirrell's fluent words came from behind him. "Professor Swan, please stay." Chapter 96. Hooked. The plan that I discussed with Dumbledore can finally be implemented. Stealing the Philosopher's Stone was fake, but gaining Quirrell's trust was real. Sebastian adjusted his facial expression, then turned around and asked with a smile, "Have you thought about it, Professor Quirrell?" Quirrell did not directly answer Sebastian's question, but instead raised questions that puzzled him. As the richest man in the wizarding world, with countless wealth, why do you need the Philosopher's Stone? Are you kidding me? Sebastian had anticipated Quirrell's question, so he took out the answer he had prepared long ago. "In addition to being a professor, I have always been a businessman. And businessmen will never have too much money. If I could turn stone into gold, I wouldn't have to struggle in my life and I could still sit firmly on the throne of the richest man." "Hey, you've never been the richest man, so I can't explain this feeling to you." After hearing this, Quirrell breathed a sigh of relief. What a money-loving guy. For the sake of money, he even disregarded his reputation and wanted to steal. What on earth are you thinking? But it doesn't matter, as long as it's not aimed at the back of my head. Quirrell, relieved, asked the second question. You could have gone and stolen the Philosopher's Stone by yourself, why did you need my cooperation? Sebastian looked Quirrell in the eye and said frankly, you know, in the education world, I'm a well-respected Muggle studies professor at Hogwarts. In the business world, I am a powerful businessman and philanthropist. In the sports world, I'm a popular Quidditch star. Quirrell was completely confused and had no idea what Sebastian was trying to say with all his rambling. It wasn't until he heard the words reputation is important to me, I need to keep my identity clean that Quirrell finally understood what Sebastian meant. Waiting for me here. This means letting yourself do the dirty work. If something goes wrong, you have to take all the responsibility yourself. How can you be so capable? After figuring this out, Quirrell felt a little unhappy. Why should I cooperate with you? Wouldn't it be better for me to work alone? Sebastian smiled confidently. You may not know this, but I have a very close relationship with Professor McGonagall, and Professor Flitwick is both my teacher and friend. Even Snape is my best friend. Therefore, I can easily find out information about the levels from various professors, which is something you can't do even if you work yourself to death. By the way, Sebastian said, with an expression that showed he had Quirrell under control, have you seen the three-headed dog? Then you should have noticed that there is a door at its feet. That is the alchemical item I provided. Any magic hitting it will make a loud noise. If you want to open it, you can only solve the puzzle on the door. Although it's just a Muggle math problem, I'm afraid you can't even understand the question, let alone the answer. And if you make a mistake once, the alarm will go off, and your plan to steal the Philosopher's Stone will fail. If you cooperate with me, I can tell you the answer directly, and help you find out about other professors' levels. I can also help you cover up and create an alibi or something. Sebastian's words moved Quirrell a little, and he quickly weighed the pros and cons in his mind. Quirrell thought for a moment and then blurted out, then what is the answer to the level you set? Sebastian's eyes flashed with disdain. Want to get something for free? It's a daydream. Sebastian slowly approached Quirrell and said in a slightly oppressive tone, Professor Quirrell, are you dreaming? We haven't even started working together yet. Quirrell had an awkward smile on his face, but he never responded to Sebastian directly. Sebastian continued, his tone becoming more gentle, but you don't need to make a decision right now. Friendly reminder, Dumbledore hasn't put the Philosopher's Stone in yet, so you can take your time to think about it. But I want to make it clear that if you want to be my ally, you have to show me what you can do. Although I need an ally, I don't want a teammate with poor strength and intelligence. After saying that, he took out a notebook from his arms and gently placed it on Quirrell's desk. It contained relevant information about the magic of love. Then, Sebastian turned and left. Before stepping out of the office door, he stopped, looked back at Quirrell who was still in a daze, and said lightly, when you have made up your mind, you can come to me anytime. Quirrell watched Sebastian leave, feeling very confused. Too much information. I need to think about this carefully. Just as he was gathering his thoughts, Voldemort in the back of his head spoke, agree to his request, I need you to get the Philosopher's Stone as soon as possible. Master, but I don't understand this magic of love. Voldemort said weakly, let me do it. No one knows this magic better than me. After the Quidditch game, Harry and the other two followed Hagrid to his cabin. As soon as he entered the room, Ronald couldn't bear it any longer and shouted at Harry, Harry, you were in danger in the sky just now because Snape was cursing you. I have long felt that there is something wrong with this professor. He has a gloomy face every day and always finds fault with students in class. And I also heard from Percy and the others that Professor Snape used to hate Gryffindor students the most. Ronald. Hermione interrupted Ronald before he finished expressing his opinion, we don't have any evidence, so we can't jump to conclusions. Professor Snape is very strict, but he treats all houses equally and does not target Gryffindor. I heard from Fred and George that Professor Snape has become fair since last year. Ronald looked at Hermione with disdain, as if he didn't agree with her, you are still speaking for him. You saw him chanting the spell with your own eyes. Hermione looked as if she wanted to say something but hesitated. She did see Snape chanting a spell, but she always felt that something was wrong. After all, the preferential treatment Harry received in potions class was obvious to all, and she didn't believe that a professor would do something to his own student in public. Harry heard the two people's heated argument and found it a little ridiculous. How is that possible? Professor Snape would harm himself? Impossible, absolutely impossible. If Professor Snape wanted to harm me, he would have had plenty of opportunities during the summer vacation. Why would he wait until now? Ronald, you are prejudiced against Slytherin. Anyway, I absolutely do not believe that Professor Snape would harm me. Ronald was a little anxious. He pulled Hagrid's clothes and asked, Hagrid, tell me, you were there at the time. Hagrid said hesitantly, I believe the professors will not harm Harry, but as for the Slytherins, Harry, you'd better be on your guard. Seeing that the three children were about to quarrel again, Hagrid quickly stopped them and said, Everyone, stop arguing. Harry is not in danger, right? Everyone, come and try the rock cake I made. Chapter 97. Harry finally couldn't keep his doubts to himself, so he found the person he trusted most in Hogwarts and asked him the question that he, Ronald and Hermione were arguing about. Professor Swan, do you know who attacked me during the Quidditch match? Ronald and Hermione said they saw Professor Snape casting a spell. I want to know, is this true? Looking at Harry's troubled face, Sebastian smiled slightly and said, do you think it was Professor Snape? I want to know what you think, Harry. Harry hesitated, then said firmly, I don't believe it was Professor Snape. I can sense his kindness. Besides, I think it wouldn't take that much trouble for a potions master to harm me. Not to mention, it happened at a Quidditch match in front of so many people. But... Harry paused, what about what Hermione and Ronald saw? Intellectually, Harry didn't believe that Snape would harm him, but Ronald and Hermione's words finally left a thorn in his heart. Sebastian walked up to Harry, looked him in the eye and said seriously, Harry, there is indeed a bad guy who has sneaked into Hogwarts. Bad guy? Could it really be Professor Snape? Harry's heart sank, and he was about to open his mouth to ask something when he heard Sebastian continue. But that was definitely not Snape. He was saving you during the game that day. Save me. Yes, Snape is very talented in defense against the dark arts. On the day of the competition, he immediately spotted the dark magic that attacked your broom. You were able to complete the race safely, thanks to his ability to remove the curse. Hearing this, Harry felt completely relaxed. This was really great news for him. To be honest, he quite liked Professor Snape. Seeing Harry's relieved look, Sebastian said earnestly, Harry, you can always trust Professor Snape at any time. Harry nodded emphatically and left Sebastian's office in high spirits. He couldn't wait to share the news with his friends. Time passed day by day, and in a blink of an eye it was mid-December, and the weather in the UK had become completely cold. With only a week left until the holiday, the little wizards' minds began to wander. It was hard for them to concentrate on their studies, and they were counting the days until the holiday every day. One day, when the little wizards woke up, they found that Hogwarts had turned white and was covered with thick snow everywhere. This time, the little wizards could no longer sit still. They left their protective badges in the dormitory, put on thick cotton coats, left the warm castle, and went to the snow to have a crazy snowball fight. Looking at this cheerful scene, Sebastian felt a little eager to do something. Hateful. I also want to have a snowball fight. What a pity. I am a professor now and cannot go crazy with my students. Sebastian stood at the gate of the castle, looking at the little wizards having fun in the snow with envy. Suddenly, he discovered an interesting scene. Fred and George cast a spell on the snowballs and then controlled them to chase Quirrell. Sebastian grinned and secretly gave the two little guys a thumbs up. Warrior. Looking at the snowball hitting Quirrell's back of the head, Fred and George laughed out loud. They linked arms and sang and shouted in the snow, as if they had accomplished something great. However, they both soon stopped laughing. Quirrell, who was hit on the back of the head, flew into a rage and deducted 20 points from each of the brothers, then punished them by putting them in solitary confinement until Christmas. Sebastian happily watched the two brothers who were going to detention, then he suddenly had an idea and walked towards the little ones who were playing snowballs. He thought of an unpopular but simple spell, the snowball spell. Sebastian is going to give a live lesson to make this snowball fight more intense. This way, he could also enjoy the view while standing nearby. Professor Swan, be careful. As the little wizard screamed, Sebastian tilted his head slightly and dodged a large snowball. The attacking little wizard had a look of despair on his face. He was afraid that he would be like his twins and receive points deduction and confinement. Fortunately for him, Sebastian just smiled at him and used an amplification spell to attract everyone's attention. "Little guys, do you want to learn an interesting way to play?" Hearing this, the little wizards gathered around with shining eyes. They all wanted to see what tricks Professor Swan had to make the snowball fight more interesting. "I'm going to teach you a simple magic trick, the snowball spell." Sebastian pointed his wand in the direction of the forbidden forest, and a small snowball quickly formed in front of him. Once the snowball appears, it begins to roll rapidly forward along the ground. The little wizards were surprised to find that as the snowball rolled, it continued to absorb the surrounding snow, becoming bigger and bigger, and it rolled faster and faster. Just like that, at first it was just a snowball the size of a fist, but as it moved forward and reached the edge of the forbidden forest, it was as big as Hagrid's house. With a bang, the big snowball hit the tree and shattered, and snowflakes scattered everywhere, looking spectacular. "Merlin's socks!" the little wizards exclaimed in amazement. They had never thought that snowball fights could involve such cool and powerful spells. They originally just rolled snowballs with their hands and then threw them at each other with all their strength. The most advanced method is to use a levitation spell to control snowballs and hit people like the Weasley twins. Compared with the professor's snowball spell, their method seemed extremely primitive. "Professor, I want to learn this." With Sebastian's patient teaching, the young wizards present soon learned this simple spell. However, the little wizards were a little confused. Their snowballs can only roll about 2 meters at most before they fall apart, which is far from the size of a house. "Professor, what's going on?" The little wizards were not happy about this and they also wanted a snowball bigger than the house. "It's simple," Sebastian explained patiently, "the snowball charm is just a simple spell. However, it requires a high level of control over the spell. You can explore it while playing and practice your control over the spell." After hearing this explanation, the young wizards suddenly understood and started practicing again. All of a sudden, snowballs of all sizes rolled towards the forbidden forest, looking spectacular. Seeing that the young wizards had almost finished their practice, Sebastian used the amplification spell on himself again. "I'm going to hold a snowball fight now. It's a team fight, and the winner will get a Christmas present from me personally. Raise your hands if you want to sign up." Chapter 98. Having a snowball fight with the snowball charm? The winning party will also receive a Christmas gift from the professor. So interesting. The little wizards' eyes suddenly lit up and they all raised their hands. They have decided to play this game. Sebastian once again used the same method from the Muggle Studies class, mixing the students together and evenly dividing them into 2 groups. After the 2 sides were about 20 meters apart, he announced the rules of the game to everyone. "Once the battle begins, you can only use the snowball spell. Any other spells will be considered a foul and I will ask you to leave the field. Also, being knocked down by a snowball will be considered a failure, so be sure to dodge it." Looking at the eager eyes of the little ones, Sebastian grinned and shouted loudly. "The game begins." As soon as the words fell, the little wizards shot the snowball spells they had prepared long ago at each other. For a moment, the big snowballs collided with each other, raising bursts of snowflakes that blocked the vision of both sides. Of course, there were some that slipped through the net and rolled directly into the opponent's position, like bowling balls, overwhelming a group of little wizards. Sebastian quickly transformed himself into a rescue team member, cast a spell, and accurately made the little wizards buried in the snow fly out of the snow one by one. "Professor, I was careless and didn't dodge." "Professor Swan, we dodged in different directions and collided with each other. It's so unfair." "Professor, I was so focused on the spell in my hand that I was knocked down without realizing it. Give us another chance XN." "That won't do," Sebastian said, turning into a cold judge. "You can continue playing after the game is over. Now just watch the fierce battle on the field." As he spoke, Sebastian waved his wand and a little wizard who was fighting flew over and struggled in the sky. "Professor Swan, you are wrong, I am not down yet. Put me back now." "You smart ass," Sebastian smiled and shook his head. "You cast an obstruction charm while I was looking in another direction. That's a serious foul. So, you better wait here obediently." Harry felt that his luck was not good because he was not assigned to be teammates with Hermione and Ronald, but became enemies in this game. Hermione's athletic talent was not strong, and in the chaos of the first round she was hit by a huge snowball and was forced out of the competition. Harry took the time to look over and saw Hermione standing on the sidelines with a sullen look on her face, as if she was extremely dissatisfied with her performance. In the opposing team, only Ronald was still shouting and attacking, looking like he wanted to avenge Hermione. As time went on, there were fewer and fewer little wizards left in the field. Sebastian watched everything on the field with great interest, and found that the people left on the field were not necessarily those with the most powerful spells, but those who were the most slippery and the best at hiding. Moreover, the largest number of people left on the field were first-year wizards, totaling 3 in total, while the number of people from other grades was only 2 at most. Sebastian couldn't really explain why this was the case. Maybe it was because the 3 remaining freshmen all had good athletic talent. After dodging a snowball, Harry was breathing heavily. He found that there were only 5 people left in his team, far behind the 8 people on the opposite side. After the venue was cleared, it became much easier to dodge, but it became more difficult to eliminate the opponent. This can't go on. Harry dodged another large snowball, his mind racing to find a solution for the situation. He carefully observed the situation on the field and suddenly discovered a special blind spot. This game is a team competition, but from the beginning to now everyone has been fighting on their own, attacking their favorite targets at will. Harry's eyes lit up as he thought of a good way to turn defeat into victory. He looked at his teammates around him and found that most of them were senior students he didn't know. The only one he knew was Malfoy from Slytherin. Even though Harry didn't like Malfoy very much, he wanted to win. Thinking of this, Harry hesitated for only a moment before shouting at Malfoy, "Malfoy, do you want to win?" "Nonsense! Of course I want to win, what do you want to say, Potter? Don't worry about it. If you want to win, just cooperate with me, Malfoy." "Who will cooperate with you?" Malfoy shouted, "Don't be so self-indulgent." However, although Malfoy was shouting loudly, his eyes still honestly paid some attention to Harry. Suddenly, he saw Harry make a Quidditch hand sign, and seeing this, Malfoy understood it instantly. Attack the target in the middle. After understanding this, Malfoy decisively cooperated with Harry and released the snowball curse at the target almost at the same time. 2 snowballs, one on the left and one on the right, blocked the opponent's escape route. The 6th grade student who was targeted didn't react immediately and was hit by a snowball, joining the army of killed people. This was beyond the expectations of both parties. Harry's teammates' eyes lit up and they all shouted at Harry. "Potter, you choose the target and we'll attack together." The opposing players were not willing to fall behind and quickly organized a counterattack. "Attack Harry! He's giving orders, knock him down first." Ronald couldn't care less at this moment, he only knew that it was unwise to leave Harry on the field. However, Harry's athletic ability was not to be underestimated. With his excellent dodging skills, he managed to dodge 2 waves of attacks. During this period, Harry's team defeated 2 opponents again, bringing the score to 5-5. The remaining teammates of the other team also became anxious and turned their wands around, shifting their targets to other people. After a fierce fight, the number of people on both sides quickly dwindled until only 3 were left. The students watching were surprised to find that the 3 little wizards left in the end were all first graders. Harry was breathing heavily, very satisfied with the situation on the field. He and Malfoy were the only 2 left on his side. The other side was left with only Ronald as the lone commander. Ronald was a little panicked at this time. He felt that he was about to be buried by the snowball, so he suddenly had an idea and used the method of provoking the snowball. "Do you dare to challenge me, Malfoy? Let's have a one-on-one duel." "What nonsense are you talking about?" Malfoy sneered. 2 people casting the snowball curse at the same time can't break it. Besides, this is a team effort. "Die, Weasley." After saying that, Malfoy waved his wand, and a snowball formed instantly, rolling towards Ronald at a high speed. Harry hesitated for a moment. The person in front of him was his good friend, and he really couldn't bear to join Malfoy in attacking Ronald. However, he remembered that when the deadlock was broken, Ronald was the first one to focus on him. Harry's heart cooled and he said this silently to himself. "Sorry Ronald, this is war." Then, Harry carefully observed the direction Ronald was dodging, stretched out his wand, and blocked Ronald's dodging space. In an instant, a snowball shot out, getting bigger and bigger, rolling rapidly towards Ronald. "Harry! You idiot, you actually joined forces with Malfoy to attack." Before he could finish his words, Ronald was knocked down by a snowball and buried under thick snow. Harry and Malfoy's collaboration was brilliant, they are both MVPs of the winning team. Sebastian's voice rang out, they will receive a special gift from me. Seeing that the outcome was decided, the winning teammates rushed forward, threw Harry and Malfoy into the air, and celebrated their hard-earned victory wildly. The defeated wizards surrounded Sebastian and asked for an extra game to avenge their previous defeat. Looking at the aggressive little guys, Sebastian had no choice but to let them continue fighting. In this way, until it got dark, the little ones returned to the castle reluctantly. As time goes by, the laughter in the school and the increasingly happy smiles of the little wizards all indicate one thing. Christmas is coming. Chapter 99. Harry stood in the corridor of Hogwarts, looking out the window at the snow-covered castle, feeling a surge of anticipation. This was his first Christmas holiday since arriving at Hogwarts. If Harry still lived with his aunt, he would sign his name on the list of students to be kept at school without hesitation. But ever since Mia and Sebastian showed up, Harry completely disdained the idea of staying in school. For him, Swan Manor is his home now. However, what made Harry a little conflicted was that his good brother Ronald had to stay at school for Christmas. Because Ronald's parents are going to Romania to visit his brother Charlie during the Christmas holidays. Although Ronald's other brothers also stayed in Hogwarts for the holiday, they all had their own plans. Percy was going to take the ordinary wizarding level examination this year, and having signed up for 12 subjects, he wasn't going to waste any time. He plans to review all his lessons carefully during the Christmas holidays. For Fred and George, Christmas is no time to be idle, it's the perfect time to show off their talents for antics. They plan to develop a snowman chewing gum during the holiday and play a prank on everyone when school starts. Once chewed, this gum will turn you into a living snowman in seconds. Apparently, Ronald was left behind by his brother's busy plans and had to face the loneliness of this holiday alone. Looking at the lonely look on Ronald's face, Harry understood this feeling very well, that was the feeling of loneliness. He really wanted to invite Ronald to spend Christmas with him, but he was worried that his invitation would cause inconvenience to Sebastian and Mia. After hesitating for a long time, Harry finally mustered up the courage. He wanted to give it a try. After all, there was nothing to lose by trying. What if he succeeded? So, the day before the holiday, Harry came to Sebastian's office. He took a deep breath and knocked on the door. "Come in," came Sebastian's voice. Harry pushed the door open and saw Sebastian sitting behind a large desk, studying a thick magic book. Seeing Harry come in, his eyes flashed with curiosity. "What's wrong, Harry?" Harry twisted his fingers nervously and tremblingly expressed his request. "Want to invite your friends to spend Christmas together." Looking at Harry, who made the request carefully, Sebastian smiled and ruffled Harry's hair. "I welcome it. Even if there are a few more mouths to feed, it won't bankrupt Swan Manor." "Will Aunt Mia agree?" Harry was a little worried. After all, for Swan Manor, Sebastian is just the male owner. If he wants to invite friends over, the consent of the hostess is also indispensable. "Haha," Sebastian laughed heartily, "Mia will definitely agree. Let's ask her now if you are worried." As he spoke, Sebastian took out a two-way mirror from his pocket, and Mia's figure soon appeared in the mirror. Her gentle voice came from the mirror. "What's wrong, Sebastian, what's the matter?" Sebastian pointed the two-way mirror at Harry and gently spoke of Harry's thoughts. "Senior Molly's child." Mia's voice came from the two-way mirror. "Of course. Harry, Swan Manor is big enough, you can call a few more friends." Having received the permission, Harry happily left the office. He couldn't wait to share the good news with Ronald. Watching Harry leave excitedly, Sebastian pondered for a moment. Invite Ronald, the little guy who likes to speak ill of Slytherin. He frowned slightly as he recalled the times he had heard Ronald openly complain about Slytherin. Alas! Although I don't like it very much, as an adult and a professor at a school, I can't just argue with an 11-year-old child. Besides, this is Harry's good friend, how could he refuse? Thinking of this, Sebastian suddenly had an idea. Why not invite the twins and Percy together? Anyway, whether you drive one sheep or let two sheep go, you will also let them go. Moreover, the Weasley family cannot be reunited this Christmas, and it would be inappropriate to separate the brothers who remain in school to celebrate the holiday. With this in mind, Sebastian released his patroness and extended a holiday invitation to the twins and Percy. Faced with Sebastian's invitation, Fred and George readily agreed. They had heard that the professor had a top-notch alchemy laboratory at home, and they couldn't wait to see it. Percy hesitated for a few seconds. For him, Hogwarts was very quiet during the holidays, which was just right for him to study. However, he felt that going to Swan Manor was not a bad idea. If he had any questions about his studies, he might be able to get some special help from the professor. Oh my god, Professor Swan's house is so luxurious. Ronald fell headfirst onto the soft big bed, completely dazed. He turned to look at Harry, his voice full of surprise and envy. Harry, you said you lived at Professor Swan's house before coming to Hogwarts, but you never mentioned that Professor Swan's house even had a small dueling arena. Besides that, there is a swimming pool, a fitness room, a greenhouse full of magical plants, and so on. The house elves in the professor's house are all unique. I doubt that even if we take out all the gold galleons in our house, we can't afford the clothes it is wearing. Ronald kept on talking non-stop. He had a lot to say to Harry. Besides, I thought the alchemy laboratory Fred and the others were talking about was just a small room, but I never expected it to be a 7-story building. Even the owl room has 3 floors. The various alchemical devices inside are so dazzling that they blind my eyes. I can't believe that the owl room is even more luxurious than our dormitory. Okay Ronald, Harry couldn't help laughing at the look on Ronald's face. Would you like to play some arcade games together? I see Fred and George have already gone to the game room. Ronald's eyes widened. Game room. He almost jumped up, with an expression of uncontrollable excitement on his face. But based on my experience, we can only have fun today. Starting tomorrow, Professor Swan will definitely supervise our studies. Supervised learning? The smile on Ronald's face froze. His eyes were wide open with an expression of disbelief. It's Christmas holiday. If I had known that I still had to study, I would never have agreed to the invitation no matter what. How fun it is to have fun at school. Now that the matter is done, it's too late to say anything. Thinking of this, Ronald jumped out of bed and pushed Harry towards the door. What are you waiting for? Lead the way. I want to have a great time today. Chapter 100. Ronald was reassured that no horrific incidents occurred the next day regarding professor-supervised learning. However, Percy was so immersed in the ocean of study that he couldn't even come out until it was time for dinner. Fred and George were not addicted to Muggle arcade games. After getting Sebastian's permission, they came to the alchemy laboratory and conducted various experiments frantically. Harry dragged Sebastian to the dueling field. After a semester of study, he was eager to know his current dueling level. Ronald didn't want to study, but after playing a few games he finally felt a little bored. In desperation, he took out his textbooks and honestly did his holiday homework. On Christmas Day, as soon as Harry arrived in the living room, he was stunned by the gifts next to the Christmas tree. Merry Christmas, Harry. Mia gave Harry a hug and took him to a pile of gifts. Jeff has sorted out your gifts. These are yours. Open them and take a look. Harry happily opened a gift, which turned out to be a very high-end broom care kit. He looked inside and saw a note in the package, I hope you can fly freely. Aunt Mia. Harry smiled knowingly and picked up the second package and started to open it. It was a big, bulging package. When it was opened, there was a large box of candies and a hand-knitted sweater inside. Oh, Harry, this must be from my mother, Ronald's voice came from behind. I told her you invited us to spend Christmas with you. The style of the sweater is a bit old. Ronald's face flushed slightly, as if he was a little embarrassed. I mean, if you don't like it. Before he could finish his words, Harry interrupted, Nonsense, I like it very much. Don't just stand there, your gift is here, come and take a look. Ronald's eyes lit up and he happily unwrapped the gift. BB every flavor beans. Hermione gave them to us. She said she was very jealous that we could study with the professor. Suddenly, Ronald gasped as he saw Harry unpack a package and take out a silver grey, shiny cloak. Oh my god, this is high-end stuff. Ronald's voice was filled with suppressed excitement, try it on and try it out. Harry casually put on the strange cloak and watched Ronald's reaction with curiosity. What do you mean? Do you know what this is? I'm not seeing things. Ronald was extremely excited. This is an invisible cloak. Look at your body. Harry looked down and was surprised to find his body gone. So amazing. My body is clearly still there when I touch it, but it seems that I can only see the floor behind me. Who sent such a high-level alchemical item? Unfortunately, Harry searched through the package but couldn't find the sender. He only learned from a small note that the invisibility cloak was a legacy from his father. This discovery made him somewhat sad, and he was stunned for a moment. Fortunately, the twins and others also came to the living room one after another. They were very curious about Harry's invisibility cloak and clamored to try it on. Amid the noise and bustle, Harry's sadness was soon diluted. After breakfast, they went to the back of the manor and started a snowball fight with the snowball charm. They played like crazy until they were exhausted and then returned to the house in their wet clothes. After using the drying spell to dry the clothes, a group of people came to the game room and happily played arcade games. When night falls, the entire Swan Manor is surrounded by the Christmas atmosphere. When we arrived at the restaurant, a sumptuous Christmas dinner was ready. The long table was filled with all kinds of delicious dishes. The golden roast turkey exuded an enticing aroma, the honey ham had crispy skin and juicy inside, and the fragrant roast potatoes and baked vegetables made people salivate. Considering that there were many children coming to the manor, Mia specially prepared a variety of delicious desserts, such as pudding, gingerbread house, and chocolate fountain. Sebastian raised his glass and said with a smile, "Thank you all, little wizards. Your arrival has made Swan Manor very lively. Thank you Mia for preparing such a rich Christmas dinner for us. Merry Christmas to everyone." Merry Christmas. Everyone raised their glasses and celebrated happily. The dinner was held in laughter. Harry told interesting stories about Hogwarts, while Fred and George kept making jokes and making everyone laugh. Percy also put aside his usual seriousness and enjoyed the warm atmosphere with a smile on his face. Ronald was eating with his mouth full of oil, and he kept sighing in his heart. Professor Swan is indeed very approachable. It seems that Harry was right, I was too prejudiced against Slytherin. Now let's see, Slytherin professors are pretty good. After the dinner, Professor Sebastian took everyone to the back garden of Swan Manor. The garden was covered with snow and looked particularly quiet and beautiful under the moonlight. Come on, Sebastian smiled and took out a bunch of fireworks and placed them on the ground. The Christmas special, the magical fireworks display, starts now. As soon as the words came out, Fred and George excitedly high-fived each other and couldn't wait to walk forward to light the first firework. With a crisp sound, a dazzling fire rushed into the sky. Bang! With a loud bang, fireworks bloomed in the night sky, forming a glittering Hogwarts school emblem, and golden sparks flew everywhere, illuminating the entire garden. Cool, the little ones exclaimed. The first firework gave them a big surprise. Fred and George lit a second firework, this time a chain of fireworks. The fireworks flew into the sky and exploded in the air one after another, forming 4 animals, a lion, a snake, an eagle, and a badger. They made various majestic poses in the sky, making the little ones roar with excitement. Let's come too. Harry and Ronald couldn't hold back any longer, they ran forward and lit the next set of magical fireworks. Flames shot up into the sky and exploded in the night sky, and then an amazing sight appeared. The first thing that appeared was a huge phoenix. It is made up of countless sparks, its feathers are dazzling, and when its wings spread, it almost covers the entire night sky. The phoenix circled in the air, its tail feathers trailing a string of golden light, and every flap of its wings was accompanied by flashing sparks. Then, a silver-white unicorn galloped out. Its mane and tail are made of fine sparks that flutter in the wind. Every step the unicorn took left a brilliant light in the air. Then, the huge Hogwarts castle slowly appeared. The castle's spires and walls are outlined by bright sparks, and the details are clearly visible. Merlin's big pants. Ronald kept exclaiming, how many gold galleons must this cost? Fred and George found a new alchemical target. They looked at each other and said in unison. It's decided, we're going to design our own fireworks too. Harry looked at the fireworks in the sky, his eyes sparkling. Suddenly, he thought of some rumors among muggles and shouted loudly to the people around him. Make a wish now. It will come true. Hearing this, several little guys shouted out what they wanted most. Pass all next year's exams with high scores. Invent interesting magic props. Get rich. Become stronger. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you're notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.